Chapter 27:14. The first elder questioned. That Ling Xiao first killed the 8th prince of the state of Qin, Jihyun of Silla. Then he used the 10-terminal formation to kill the 4 commanders of the Sky Thunder Legion. The most shocking and inconceivable thing was that he went to the Thunder capital alone, killed the demon envoy of the Demon Shadow sect, destroyed the Volcano Pavilion, and killed the 2 Tower Lords. He even killed General Blue Thunder, and the strongest General Purple Thunder. He wiped out 3 of the 8 great clans of the state of Qin. All of these things were simply inconceivable. However, many of them were things that people had witnessed with their own eyes. Especially when Ling Xiao destroyed the Volcano Pavilion, destroyed the 3 great clans, and killed General Purple Thunder. The demon dragon envoy of our dragon cult was also present. How could such a heroic figure be such an ignorant brat? That General Purple Thunder's cultivation was comparable to my 3rd brother's. Sect Master, are you insisting that this brat can defeat my 3rd brother? Others also had such doubts, but they did not directly voice them like the first elder. Clearly, Ling Xiao's cultivation was only at the peak of the 9th level of the Yinyang realm. How could he have done such a thing? Unless the Ling Xiao in front of them was not the real Ling Xiao, but someone else in disguise. So you're saying that you're doubting this seat's judgment? Chun Bai coldly asked. This subordinate does not dare, but Sect Master did take Chun Songxiong as a disciple. At that time, Chun Songxiong used another alias. The first elder said that he did not dare, but he was indeed doubting. Haha, this seat also told you that even if he wasn't that Ling Xiao, this seat would still take him as a disciple. What are you going to do about it? Chun Bai coldly sneered. He really is an impostor. Hearing Chun Bai's words, everyone seemed to be relieved. They were unwilling to believe that this person with mediocre cultivation was the hero in their hearts. After all, Ling Xiao was the idol of many people in the dragon cult. Your subordinate doesn't dare to do anything. I just want to clarify things. The first elder heaved a sigh of relief. Now that he knew that Ling Xiao wasn't the real Ling Xiao, he wasn't as worried as before. Is it clear now? Chun Bai asked. Understood. Since you're clear about it, you may leave. I don't wish for anyone to continue dwelling on this issue. Chun Bai said indifferently. Although his words were unpleasant to hear, they were what most people thought. Yes, we will take our leave now. The 3 sect elders and many of the higher-ups left, including the 2 vice-sect leaders. Only Ling Xiao, Chun Bai, and Chen Wan were left. Godfather, you clearly know that he is the real Ling Xiao. Why don't you explain yourself? After everyone left, Chen Wan asked impatiently. Master, you're doing this to protect me. Ling Xiao said, if those people knew that I was the real Ling Xiao, I'm afraid that they would kill me regardless of the consequences because I would become their biggest threat. Now that they think I'm an imposter, they won't target me as much as before. Although they will still cause trouble for me, I can handle this kind of trouble. Once my cultivation becomes stronger, even if they know the truth, they can't do anything to me. Ha ha ha. As expected of Ling Xiao. You're really smart. Chun Bai laughed and said, yes, that's what I was thinking. I hope that you can concentrate on cultivating instead of dealing with troublesome matters every day. In fact, with your strength, as long as you're not the 3rd elder or the upper disciples, you should have no problem staying alive, right? Yes, of course. Ling Xiao nodded and said, well, the matter here is over. Go and see your benefactor. The night is formless. Chun Bai stood up and led Ling Xiao to the medical hall of the Demon Dragon Palace. On the way, a martial artist hurriedly chased after them. It wasn't any of the higher-ups from the previous meeting. Sect Master, Demon Dragon Envoy, what's the matter? Chun Wan asked. Demon Dragon Envoy, the Sect Master's new disciple wants to be registered. This disciple thought that he was Ling Xiao, so I already registered him. However, the 3rd elder just said that this person is an impostor. This although that person said that there was a hint of mockery in his expression as he looked at Ling Xiao. How shameless of him to impersonate a hero. You're right. My real name is not Ling Xiao. It's Elder Zhong's father. You can write it that way. Ling Xiao said lightly. Elder Zhong's father? What a strange name. The martial artist didn't react for a while. He muttered the name and turned to leave. Chen Bai didn't stop him. He planned to wait until Ling Xiao was truly recognized by everyone in the dragon cult before registering him. At that time, Ling Xiao could officially take over the dragon cult. If he forcibly registered now, many people would not be convinced. The martial artist in charge of registration returned to the place where he worked. The third elder was still waiting. What's his name? The third elder asked. Reporting to the third elder, that person said that he's Elder Zhong's father. Well, Elder Zhong's father. Well, bastard. The third elder suddenly stood up and slapped the martial artist. Idiot, you don't even know that you've been fooled. At this time, the martial artist suddenly came to his senses. Third elder, that brat is really bad. He actually dared to offend the three elders. We must teach him a lesson. The martial artist in charge of registration was also one of the three elders. Now that he was slapped by the third elder, he vented all his anger on Ling Xiao. Teach him a lesson? Then I'll give you a chance to atone for your mistake. I heard that Brat has a good relationship with Dark Knight Formless. You should take advantage of the quiet night and give Dark Knight Formless a quick death, so that he won't always live in pain. I want to see what kind of expression that Brat will have when Dark Knight Formless dies. Daring to insult us three elders. He must be tired of living. The third elder sneered. This subordinate obeys. Remember, Mo-san do this beautifully. Don't let anyone find out, otherwise you'll be in trouble. The third elder said coldly. Don't worry, third elder. If you want me to kill that brat, I might not dare. But killing Dark Knight Formless is not a problem. I have people in the medical hall. Mo-san nodded. Then it's fine. At this time, Ling Xiao, Qin Bai, and Chunwan had already arrived at the medical hall. The treatment for Dark Knight Formless had already ended. Ling Xiao looked at the unconscious Dark Knight Formless lying on the bed and sighed in his heart. Back at the 8 Immortal Mountain, if not for Dark Knight Formless, he would have been chased out. Dark Knight Formless was a great favor to him, so he naturally had to wake him up. He walked forward, grabbed Dark Knight Formless' hand, and released a strand of soul power. Chapter 27:15. What's going on? Qin Bai knew something was wrong when he saw Ling Xiao's pale face. The Hill Master has been poisoned. It's a very vicious poison that can make him unconscious forever and then slowly die. Fortunately, I came early. Otherwise, if I came 2 or 3 months later, even the gods wouldn't be able to save him. Ling Xiao's face was very ugly. What? Chen Bai revealed a shocked expression. Someone actually dared to poison my friend. Although his strength was outstanding, he didn't know anything about pharmacology. Therefore, it was impossible for him to see that Yi Yezi was poisoned. It can't be wrong. This poison is called shadowless poison. It's colorless and odorless, and it won't kill him immediately. That's why you thought that the Hill Master was unconscious, because of his injuries. Ling Xiao really wanted to kill someone now. However, if he wanted to kill someone, he would have to find the person who poisoned him first. Not long after, the pharmacists, nurses, and nurses all arrived. Why is there one missing? Chun Wan frowned. He was the demon dragon envoy and was very familiar with the people in the medical hall. Therefore, he could tell at a glance that one person was missing. However, the missing person was Yi Yezi's nurse, which was even more strange. He told Ling Xiao and Chun Bai about the situation. Chun Bai immediately ordered a search for the nurse. This was the Demon Dragon City, Chun Bai's territory. No one could escape. During the search, Chun Wan was in charge of interrogating the pharmacists, nurses, and nurses. He was very good at this kind of thing anyway. Ling Xiao began to treat Yi Yezi's injuries and detoxify him. After about half an hour, Ling Xiao's face showed a relaxed expression. Yi Yezi's body, which had been motionless, finally reacted. The Hill Master's body is too weak. Although the poison has been detoxified, he still needs to recuperate. Can I trouble Master to arrange a safe place for me to take care of him? Other than Chun Bai and Chun Wan, he didn't trust anyone else here. Therefore, it was absolutely necessary for Dark Knight Formless to stay in a place where only he could go. No problem. My Demon Dragon City may not have many things, but it has plenty of secret rooms. When the dragon cult was first established, I spent a lot of effort to avoid the pursuit of the Chun nation's royal family. Chun Bai said proudly. Thinking back to those bitter days back then, he still felt that it was quite interesting. Thank you, Master. Ling Xiao had already made up his mind. He wanted Xiao Jin to take care of and protect Dark Knight. In any case, Xiao Jin couldn't cultivate right now. The only way to increase its strength was to devour heat sources. This was something he could help Little Gold obtain. Taking care of and protecting Dark Knight Formless would not be a problem. Although he was still unable to transform into a human form, his little claws were still very nimble. Ling Xiao, Godfather. Someone just reported that the body of the female doctor has been found, and she died not long ago. In addition, I've already interrogated those people, but they don't seem to know anything. I don't think they're lying because I tortured her. Just as Ling Xiao and Qin Bai were talking, Chun Wan walked over and reported. It seems that someone has a guilty conscience. Ling Xiao smiled coldly. He didn't expect to encounter such a thing as soon as he arrived in Demon Dragon City. He hadn't found the culprit yet, but it didn't matter. As long as this person was still in the dragon cult, he didn't believe that this person wouldn't reveal his foxtail. As for the results of Chun Wan's interrogation, he didn't doubt it at all. The person who poisoned Dark Knight, Formless, naturally wouldn't reveal his identity. In fact, there wasn't much difference whether he was tortured or not. Master, I suddenly thought of something. Don't arrange a secret room. Just arrange an ordinary residence for me. Otherwise, how can I give others a chance? Ling Xiao wanted to fish, but once he entered the secret room, he was afraid that even the fish wouldn't be able to enter. You have to think carefully. That might be dangerous. Chun Bai reminded. Master, don't worry. After all, this is Demon Dragon City. The real big shots won't make a move. They'll only send some small fries. And these small fries will think that I'm a fake Ling Xiao, so they'll be easy to bully. That's why they're the easiest to deal with. When the big shots can't hold back and make a move, don't I still have you, Master? Ling Xiao smiled. That's true. Then I'll give you the Demon Air Hall near the cult leader's hall. That's where the successor of the cult leader should live. It's the closest to where I live. Chun Bai pondered for a moment before saying, Thank you, Master. Then the three of them brought Dark Knight Formless to the Demon Air Hall. After sitting down, Chun Bai said, Disciple, I know you're worried about Brother Dark Knight, but you should understand that after coming to the Dragon Cult, raising your cultivation and status is the most important thing. You should really want to obtain the supreme techniques of the Dragon Cult. I'm not afraid to tell you that the Dragon Cult does indeed have 4 supreme techniques, and each of them has reached the 3rd heaven of the immortal grade. In the state of Qin, a martial art at the 3rd heaven of the immortal grade is the top martial art. Hearing Qin Bai's words, Ling Xiao's heart suddenly heated up. The 4 supreme techniques. Just hearing the name was enough to make one excited. Of course, he didn't forget his purpose in coming to the Dragon Cult. Of course, he didn't regret saving Dark Knight Formless. He also didn't regret healing Dark Knight Formless. However, he naturally hoped to obtain the 4 supreme martial arts. This point also didn't change. Master, what's the story behind the 4 supreme techniques of the Dragon Cult? Ling Xiao asked. Since Dark Knight Formless life was no longer in danger, he could rest assured and make plans for himself. Some of the 4 supreme techniques were taken from the royal family of the state of Qin. Some were snatched from other sections. Some were obtained from secret realms. All in all, it wasn't easy to obtain all of them, and it's even harder to cultivate them. You should understand that ordinary people only have the right to cultivate the 3rd heaven of the immortal grade after reaching the 1st cycle of the yin-yang realm and the 12 levels of hell. And in the dragon cult, only the upper disciples have the right to come in contact with the 4 supreme techniques. So even if you're my disciple, I can't help you get in through the back door. Of course, other than the 4 supreme techniques, there's no problem with anything else. Chunbai's words were naturally to tell Ling Xiao the key to increasing his cultivation and status. Ling Xiao had just joined the dragon cult and was only a lower disciple. That's not a problem. Master, tell me first, what are the 4 supreme techniques? Ling Xiao wasn't worried about increasing his cultivation and status. He had absolute confidence in himself. Okay, since you're so confident, I'll tell you. Since Chunbai had chosen to take Ling Xiao as his disciple, he naturally wouldn't hide anything. Up until now, no one had learned all of the 4 supreme techniques of the dragon cult. Chapter 27:16. On the path of martial arts, there are usually 4 types of martial arts that accompany one. They are movement techniques, offensive martial arts, defensive martial arts, and auxiliary martial arts. The 4 supreme martial arts happen to be these 4 types. Chunbai paused and looked at Ling Xiao before continuing. Let's talk about movement techniques first. The movement technique of the 4 supreme martial arts is called Demonic Dragon's Phantom. Using the Demonic Dragon's Phantom allows the warrior to be as elusive as a demonic dragon. During a battle, the demonic dragon's head can be seen, but its tail can't be seen. Even a warrior with a higher cultivation might not be able to capture your true body. The requirements for this movement technique are relatively low. Normally, the requirement is to reach the 12th level of hell in the yin-yang realm. But in reality, as long as one has enough talent, aptitude, and comprehension, one can cultivate it after reaching the 11th level of hell in the yin-yang realm. Demonic Dragon's Phantom? I just happen to need this movement technique. My 1,000-mile wolf can't keep up with my cultivation anymore. Ling Xiao thought about it. He made the right choice in coming to the dragon cult. Otherwise, how could he have come into contact with such martial arts? Next, the auxiliary martial arts is called Demonic Dragon's Possession. Demonic Dragon's Possession is a martial art that can increase one's combat strength in battle. When using it, one can summon a demonic dragon to possess their body. Although their appearance won't change, their combat strength will increase exponentially. Inner strength, defense, strength, and speed will all increase. At the 1st level of heaven, the increase will be doubled. At the 2nd level of heaven, the increase will be doubled. At the 3rd level of heaven, the increase will be quadrupled. It's really powerful. The difficulty of cultivating this is higher than the demonic dragon's phantom. But for a genius warrior, it should be possible to cultivate it after reaching the peak of the 11th level of hell in the yin-yang realm. The last 2 supreme martial arts are more difficult. One must reach the 12th level of hell in the yin-yang realm in the 1st level of hell in order to cultivate them. Also, you need special tools. Special tools? Ling Xiao frowned. That's right. The last 2 martial arts are contained within the Demon Dragon Sword. Only by obtaining the Demon Dragon Sword can you cultivate them. The offensive martial skill was the Demonic Dragon Scripture. After obtaining this set of martial skills, one could modify it according to the offensive methods one was good at. Then he extended the Demonic Dragon Sword art, Demonic Dragon Saber art, and so on. The defensive martial skill is the Imperial Celestial Dragon Body. This defensive martial skill was brought from the royal family of the Qin nation by your master. It is also sealed in the Demon Dragon Sword. That would truly be a slap to the face of the Qin nation's royal family. That was because even the Thunder Emperor was unable to successfully learn this martial technique. I don't have it either, so you can only know the specific effects after you succeed in cultivating it. At this point, Chunbai cast a hopeful look at Ling Xiao. He believed that with Ling Xiao's aptitude, he would definitely be able to accomplish what he had never accomplished before. It was a slap to the face of the Chun Kingdom's royal family. Master, don't worry. I won't let you down. Ling Xiao didn't want to disappoint Chunbai. Similarly, he didn't want to disappoint those who had high hopes for him. Although the pressure was great, the greater the pressure, the greater the motivation for him. Good. Since you have such thoughts, then it's easy. Today, the dragon cult is holding an assessment for the promotion of a lower disciple to a middle disciple. With your strength, it shouldn't be a problem. Do you want to participate? Chunbai asked. Of course. Ling Xiao nodded. With such an opportunity, he naturally had to seize it. However, I have to remind you that you offended the 3 elders before. The 3rd elder is in charge of the assessment for the promotion of a lower disciple to a middle disciple. He will definitely cause trouble for you. You must be careful. Chunbai reminded him. I know, Master. I, Ling Xiao, am not a pushover who can be bullied by anyone. If they really want to deal with me, then I will definitely make them as disappointed as those idiots from the Qin nation's royal family. Ling Xiao sneered. Although he still hadn't found out who poisoned Invisible Knight, Ling Xiao already had a suspect. The person who poisoned him must have a grudge against Chunbai. If it wasn't the 2 vice sect masters, then it must be the 3 elders. He didn't have any evidence now, so he couldn't speak carelessly. However, he believed that these people would sooner or later reveal their foxtail. The way to expose them as soon as possible was to keep getting stronger and make them feel threatened. The promotion of a lower disciple to a middle disciple was only the first step. Chunbai personally led Ling Xiao to the assessment site. The assessment site was in the Demon Dragon City. Because it was considered a grand event of the dragon cult, it attracted a lot of attention. Almost all the warriors in the Demon Dragon City came to watch the show. At this moment, the Demon Dragon City square could be said to be a sea of people. The huge square was actually crowded. If it weren't for the fact that Chunbai and Ling Xiao's movement techniques weren't weak, it would be difficult to squeeze through these people. At this time, the selection was nearing its end. The reason why the 3rd elder was able to reach the Demon Dragon City so quickly was because he was not far from the city gate. Anyway, it didn't matter whether he was present or not. His subordinates were enough to maintain the situation. Fortunately, there's still time. Chunbai saw that the middle disciple selection wasn't over yet, so he led Ling Xiao to the 3rd elder. Lu Lao-san, my disciple, also wants to participate in the selection. Is there still time? Lu Lao-san's words were not a negotiation. Although he used a questioning tone, it was actually an order. The 3rd elder didn't want to agree, but when he thought of Chunbai's terrifying strength, he suddenly lost his confidence. If the sect master says there's still time, then there's still time. However, now that the selection is in the final battle, all the battles are basically over. Why don't you just let Ling Xiao directly advance? Anyway, you're the sect master. You have this privilege. The 3rd elder's words were more or less sarcastic. Humph. Do you think I'm like the 3 of you who like to play favoritism? Chunbai coldly snorted and said, Who has the best result in this selection? The 3rd elder didn't understand why Chunbai asked such a question, but he still answered, The 13th prince has the best result. The 13th prince. Hearing this, Ling Xiao was stunned. He remembered that the 13th prince had once come to the 8 Immortal City to preside over the selection of the Arcana Academy disciples. However, the 13th prince had always been against him and almost killed him. Later, Jihyun of Silla captured the 13th prince alive and wanted to bring him back to Thunder City, but he was snatched away by the people of the dragon cult. He didn't expect that the 13th prince would become a disciple of the dragon cult. Oh, the one that Phoenix in the Cloud wants to cultivate to be a puppet king? Chunbai laughed. That's right. This kid's talent isn't bad, but he's a bit lazy. After our training, he has already reached the early stage of the 10th level of hell in a short time. Chapter 27:17. The 13th prince has been working hard ever since he became my disciple. Plus, he's good at some powerful martial techniques. Soon, he stood out among the lower disciples. This time, he won't have any problem becoming a middle disciple. The third sect elder said proudly. It was as if he was mocking Chinbai. Look at Vice Sect Master Phoenix in the cloud's eyes, and look at the disciple you chose. This is the difference. He's the one. Chunbai said with a smile, let Ling Xiao fight the 13th prince. If Ling Xiao wins, both of them will become middle disciples. What do you think? Are you sure? The third sect elder said with a smile, Sect Master, you have to think carefully. Although I know what happened outside the demonic dragon city, it's just the result of Zheng Quan and Lu Su underestimating the enemy. It's not this fake. This Ling Xiao is very strong. What if he is injured by the 13th prince? What should we do then? It doesn't matter, as long as he doesn't die. Chen Bai waved his hand and said, our dragon cult has always had this rule. If we don't suffer some losses, how can we grow? If we keep protecting ourselves like those idiots in the royal family, we won't be able to fight against the royal family of the Qin kingdom. Okay, since Sect Master says so, I'll do as you say. The third sect elder was secretly delighted. In fact, the 13th prince's cultivation had already broken through to the middle stage of the 10th level of hell. He said that the early stage was just to numb Qin Bai and Ling Xiao. Qin Bai agreed to this duel, which finally gave him a chance to deal with Ling Xiao. Brat, how dare you make fun of me and humiliate my grandson? You'll make a fool of yourself today. The third sect elder sneered. He called the 13th prince over and told him about the duel. The 13th prince was, of course, very happy. Ling Xiao made him lose face in the 8 Immortals County. At that time, he almost killed Ling Xiao, but his second brother, Jihyun of Silla, Qin Kanglin, stopped him. But today, the opportunity came again. Even if he couldn't kill Ling Xiao, he had to cripple him. Remember, as long as you don't kill him, you can beat him however you want. The third sect elder reminded. Don't worry, Elder Zong. I know what to do. If it weren't for Elder Zong, I'm afraid I would still be trapped in the royal prison. The 13th prince stared at Ling Xiao, wishing that the battle would start right away. Ling Xiao smiled faintly. He naturally understood Chen Bai's intentions. He wanted him to become a middle disciple openly and not let others gossip about him. At the same time, it was also a sign of trust in him. He couldn't disappoint his master. After the rest of the selections were over, the third elder announced the duel between Ling Xiao and the 13th prince. The crowd went wild. The name Ling Xiao had recently become a hot topic within the dragon cult. He had become the idol of almost every dragon cult disciple. But it was rumored that the sect leader had recently accepted a disciple who had the same name as Ling Xiao, the one who killed General Purple Thunder. This impostor, after being slandered and exaggerated by the 3 elders, became a public enemy. Even the disciples of the sect leader were disdainful of the impostor Ling Xiao. Ling Xiao was very calm in the face of these disdainful and hateful gazes. These people didn't hate him. Instead, they respected him too much, which was why they hated the impostor. It was actually very simple to resolve this misunderstanding. When he became an upper disciple, everything would be clear. So he wasn't worried, nor did he resent these people. The only people he was unhappy with were the 3 elders. They were already so old, and they were also people of high status in the dragon cult. How could they not have any sense of shame? To deal with a small fry like him, they had to resort to such despicable slander. What a joke! An impostor is an impostor. That day outside the city, we underestimated him and gave him the upper hand. Chen Wan must have secretly helped him. How could he have won against the 13th prince? Many middle disciples had appeared in the crowd to watch. Among them were Zheng Quan and Lu Su, who had been humiliated by Ling Xiao. The person who spoke was Zheng Quan. Although he had been frightened by Ling Xiao outside the city that day, the hatred he had for Ling Xiao had not diminished at all. After the third elder's advice, he understood that it wasn't that Ling Xiao was too strong, but that he had underestimated him too much. If he had lost to the real Ling Xiao, it would have been fine. But he had actually lost to the imposter Ling Xiao. This was simply a great humiliation. He looks quite handsome, but it's a pity that he doesn't even dare to say his real name. He even used Ling Xiao's name. This kind of person is a useless piece of trash. Lu Su said coldly from the side. The girls who were with him also nodded. In a world like the mystic world, martial arts were respected. Of course, it was easy to attract people's attention with good looks, but more importantly, it was actually strength. A powerful man would never lack the favor of women. Don't count on it. He can't win. The 13th prince has the royal family's secret technique. Although he was our enemy in the past, he is still a noble. And his cultivation is much higher than Ling Xiao's. Ling Xiao is just a lowly person from Yuhua town. How can he win? Moreover, don't forget that the 13th prince is the champion of this year's lower disciple promotion competition. Could it be that some people think that Ling Xiao is stronger than all the lower disciples of the dragon cult? Zhang Quan added, seeming to make a lot of sense. Many people nodded. However, the faces of Qin Bai's adopted sons and daughters did not look good. I really don't know why foster father values this person so much. I really hope he doesn't embarrass foster father. Otherwise, we won't be able to survive in the dragon cult. Almost every one of Qin Bai's adopted sons and daughters had been bullied by the 3 elders' disciples. Therefore, they were really depressed and worried. They hoped that Ling Xiao would win, but they did not have much confidence. Don't worry, he will definitely win. A voice came from behind them. Everyone looked back and found that it was their most admired big brother, Chen Luan. Big brother? Don't worry, this guy is stronger than your big brother. Although his cultivation has dropped a lot due to some reasons, I still believe in his combat strength. Chen Luan believed in Ling Xiao because he knew that Ling Xiao was not a fake, because he had personally witnessed the miracle that Ling Xiao had created. On the stage, Ling Xiao and the 13th prince faced each other, each standing on one side. You didn't expect us to meet again, did you? Under everyone's gaze, the 13th prince fiercely slammed the heavy saber in his hand on the stage. The entire stage seemed to be struck by lightning and thunder, constantly shaking. I didn't expect it. Ling Xiao nodded. He also felt that it was very interesting to meet the 13th prince here. It was really unexpected. Chapter 2718. When he was in the 8 Immortal City, many people thought that Jihyun of Silla had saved him. But he was very clear. Jihyun of Silla had saved the 13th prince. If things had continued to develop, the 13th prince would have died. There was no doubt about that. He was very happy to be able to meet this person again today, because the battle that he did not complete back then could finally be realized today. You are not worthy of being the sect leader's disciple. The 13th prince saw Ling Xiao's indifferent expression and was immediately enraged. He directly mocked. If I'm not worthy, do you think you are? Ling Xiao could not help but feel a little amused. Whether he was worthy or not, Qin Bai knew best. Was there a need for these small fries to judge him? However, it seemed that although many people felt that Qin Bai's control over the dragon cult was getting weaker and weaker, they also hoped to become Qin Bai's disciple. This kind of contradictory feeling was probably the portrayal of these people's deepest feelings. Of course, I'm more worthy than you. The 13th prince coldly pointed the long sword in his hand. He held the 1,000-pound sword in one hand and said to Ling Xiao, "Today I will completely defeat you in front of the sect leader. I will let the sect leader see that you are not worthy of being his last disciple. You are not even worthy of being a disciple of the dragon cult. You are only worthy of being a piece of trash. Is that so? Then I want to see how much you have improved after not seeing you for so long." Ling Xiao smiled. It seemed that he had to make an example out of the 13th prince today. Otherwise, there would be endless trouble in the future. Even if he defeated the 13th prince, it would not stop everyone from finding trouble with him, but it would still scare some people away. No matter what, the 13th prince was still the top among the lower disciples. He raised his hand and directly took out the 8 immortal sword. The tip of the sword was pointed at the 13th prince. The sword vibrated slightly, and in an instant, a sharp sword chi cut through the void, creating a sound of wind breaking. It rushed towards the 13th prince. In order to prevent an overconfident challenger like you from appearing, I can only let you lose in a more direct and miserable manner today. Ling Xiao smiled. He already had a plan in mind. Humph, you want to make an example out of me? What a joke! The 13th prince snorted coldly and said, I heard that you obtained my 14th brother's blood thunder imperial sword. You might as well take it out. Otherwise, you won't have any chance. Suppressing you with weapons is too boring. This 8 immortal sword is enough. Ling Xiao said indifferently, If I use the blood thunder imperial sword, I'm afraid that even if I defeat you, you won't be convinced. You are simply courting death. The 13th prince felt that he was being looked down upon and was a little annoyed. Ling Xiao stopped talking nonsense with him. Instead, he looked at the rostrum and asked, Can this duel start now? Of course, we can start any time. The 3rd clan elder nodded and laughed in his heart, arrogant and conceited kid. I was worried that the 13th prince would be in trouble after you used the blood thunder imperial sword. Since you've given up on your greatest advantage, there's no longer any suspense in this battle. Be careful, kid. The 13th prince intended to strike first to gain the upper hand. Immediately after, the thunder martial soul appeared behind his back. He waved the long saber in his hand and stomped on the ground. His body suddenly leaned forward. On the long saber, a terrifying saber chi broke through the air. As it flew, a roar could be heard. The target of this saber chi was naturally Ling Xiao. Good. Kill that impostor. Defeat him. Let him know how powerful we are. Seeing the 13th prince's attack, the surrounding people shouted crazily. Most of the people here hoped that Ling Xiao would be defeated. This was because they felt that Ling Xiao was an impostor and that he had tarnished the name of the hero in their hearts. However, at this moment, Ling Xiao faced the 13th prince's attack and stood there steadily. He had no intention of dodging at all. He quietly looked at the incoming saber chi and gently shook the long sword in his hand. A sharp sword chi began to condense. He needed to prove himself. Because he had become Chunbai's closed-door disciple, there would naturally be many people who would hate him because of this. If he wanted to avoid endless trouble, he had to win this duel cleanly. He could not be sloppy. Only by winning would he be able to intimidate most of the people who wanted to cause trouble for him. Moreover, Chunbai had treated him well. He had to do something for Chunbai, now that he was facing a mere lower disciple. He naturally wanted to win in an overwhelming manner. He wanted to let everyone in the dragon cult know that Chunbai was not blind to have chosen him as his last disciple. Instead, he had true talent that could make countless people blush with shame. He wanted to let everyone know that Chunbai had a good eye. Only in this way would Chunbai's position in the dragon cult be more stable. If Chunbai's position was stable, then it would be easier for him to mingle. In order to do this, what he needed was an absolutely crushing victory without any suspense. If he could win in one move, then he would not use a second move. If he could win in 2 moves, then he would not use a third move. He had to use his own performance to repay Chunbai's trust and expectations. He wanted Chunbai to put all his efforts into nurturing him and not be distracted by anything else. Although these thoughts were many, in reality, they only lasted for a moment. Ling Xiao's mouth held a trace of a smile. Looking at the smile on Ling Xiao's face, the surrounding people all had the same thought. This guy was really arrogant. Yes, in the face of a strong opponent's attack, he actually did not move and could still maintain that indifferent smile. But he was really arrogant, as if the opponent's attack had no meaning to him. Seeing this scene, the 13th prince was even more annoyed. He had originally been looking forward to defeating Ling Xiao and making a fool of Ling Xiao in front of everyone. But Ling Xiao looked down on him. Fine, since that's the case, I'll first cripple your cultivation, then slowly torture you. Thinking of this, not only did the sword in his hand not weaken the attack, but it also released an even more terrifying aura. The huge sword aura instantly became even bigger. Then it fiercely attacked Ling Xiao, as if it wanted to cut Ling Xiao in half. At that moment, the sword aura had already reached Ling Xiao's waist. Many of the timid spectators were so scared that they screamed and covered their eyes. As for Chun Bai's foster children, except for Chun Wan, all of them lowered their heads. It seemed that this time, Ling Xiao was going to embarrass his foster father again. After all, there was no way he could defeat the disciples of the 3 elders and the 2 deputy leaders. The 3rd elder also showed a proud expression, looking at Ling Xiao gloatingly. From time to time, he secretly glanced at Chun Bai, hoping to see disappointment or even despair on Chun Bai's face. However, Chun Bai's face was calm. Chapter 27:19. Looking at Chun Bai's calm expression, the 3rd elder sneered in his heart. Humph, keep pretending, keep pretending. Wait till your so-called last disciple is crippled. You won't be so calm anymore. Under everyone's complicated gazes, Yi Zichen looked at Yi Zichen. The 13th prince's terrifying saber chi had already arrived in front of Ling Xiao like a bolt of lightning. In the next moment, Ling Xiao might be split into 2, cut in half at the waist. While most people were waiting for this exciting scene to happen, something strange happened. The saber energy that was about to touch Ling Xiao's clothes suddenly stopped. It was as if the air had frozen, and the saber energy had also become stiff. Everyone looked at the saber energy in shock. They saw a hand that was shining with yellow light. It was this hand that had blocked the ferocious saber chi as easily as taking out a piece of paper. The demonic Dragon City's square was dead silent. In the next moment, the square was in an uproar. They were sure that the hand belonged to the impostor. Ling Xiao still maintained his calm smile and looked at the 13th prince, who was in shock, and said, "With your attack power, I don't even need to use my sword. Maybe I overestimated you?" As soon as he finished speaking, Ling Xiao's figure suddenly disappeared. Although he did not learn the demonic dragon's phantom, his 1,000-mile wolf still caught the 13th prince off guard. The 13th prince realized that he could not sense Ling Xiao's aura. At that moment, he was extremely frightened, and panic appeared on his face. Suddenly, a sword light pierced out from a strange angle. The sword light was like a phantom, and it instantly turned from 1 to 10. The sword light was as fast as lightning, and it shot towards the 13th prince's body. Of course, every sword light avoided his vital points. After all, this was the middle disciple selection, not a life and death battle. Ling Xiao knew how to control the situation. At this moment, the 13th prince did not completely lose his mind. After all, his cultivation was not weak. Although his battle experience and aura were not as good as Ling Xiao's, his cultivation and martial skills were not bad either. While quickly retreating to avoid Ling Xiao's terrifying sword shadow, the long blade in his hand also began to swing. The long saber formed streaks of lightning saber shadows around his body. These saber shadows gradually formed an impenetrable defense. After the defense was formed, the 13th prince began to prepare for a counterattack. The saber was raised to the sky and then slashed down fiercely. The countless saber shadows in the sky finally merged into one. Then, lightning flashed and the air exploded. He slashed at Ling Xiao. Thunderous explosion, 9-fold blade. With a furious roar, the terrifying saber chi completely exploded above Ling Xiao's head. A terrifying aura began to spread in all directions. Many people felt this terrifying aura and couldn't help but be surprised. No wonder he's the most outstanding among the inferior disciples. His attack is so powerful that even a warrior at the second level of hell in Yin Yang realm can't block it. Yes, Ling Xiao thought he could turn the tables. I'm afraid he'll be smashed to pieces by this move. But if he dies, the 13th prince will be punished too. What are you afraid of? With the protection of the 3 elders, Ling Xiao's death is nothing. He's just an imposter anyway. Didn't you see how the hierarch's foster children were bullied? But he didn't protect them? Why did I hear that the hierarch didn't protect them because he was too disappointed in those foster children? Those people didn't even dare to resist. Why would the hierarch do it? In the midst of this discussion, Ling Xiao ushered in the breakthrough he had been waiting for. Before coming here, he had already swallowed the demon core of the giant python and refined it into a seal-breaking pill in his body. However, in order to fully exert the power of this pill, he needed an external force to stimulate it. This time, the 13th prince's attack was very powerful. Ling Xiao did not block it. He allowed the power to pour into his body through the top of his head and hit the seal-breaking pill. The pill's power was instantly released. At the same time, Ling Xiao's sealed cultivation was also completely released. The potential in his body was huge. How difficult could it be for him to break through the early stage of the 10th level of the Yin Yang realm? When Ling Xiao's cultivation base had reached this level, the 13th prince had become a complete piece of trash in his eyes. He was not even qualified to help him cultivate. Facing the 13th prince, Ling Xiao smiled and said, "Since you helped me break through, I won't cripple your cultivation. But I hope you won't provoke me again in the future." With that, he shook the long sword in his hand and released a pitch-black sword qi. The martial techniques of the Chun Kingdom's royal family may be very powerful, but unfortunately, you didn't learn the essence. I can even defeat your 14th brother. You're not even worth mentioning to me. With that, he stabbed out with his long sword. At the same time, the 13th prince's long sword slashed out again. The collision between the sword and the long sword caused a terrifying energy vibration. Under the watchful eyes of countless people, the long saber was sent flying and then stabbed into the ring. Before the 13th prince realized what had happened, Ling Xiao raised his foot and kicked him in the stomach. The 13th prince spat out blood and was sent flying. He rubbed against the arena and finally fell out of it. At this moment, the square fell into a dead silence again. Everyone looked at the 13th prince, who had fallen out of the arena. At this moment, the 13th prince's clothes were almost completely torn to pieces by the sword qi, leaving only the inner armor he wore. It was not enough to completely embarrass him. Even so, he was still in a very sorry state. He was almost unconscious. He looked up at the sky in a daze. No one knew what he was thinking. At this moment, everyone's feelings were very complicated. Some people were thinking, is that person really the fake Ling Xiao? However, the terrifying combat power he displayed did not match his cultivation. It was very similar to the legendary Ling Xiao. Some people were thinking, fortunately, we didn't force our way out. Otherwise, we would be the ones in a very sorry state. Some people were thinking, the sect leader has taken in a good disciple this time. Whether it's the fake or the real Ling Xiao, we've profited. However, they did not know how long this genius could live. Would the 3 sect elders and 2 deputy sect leaders allow him to exist? After the dust settled, Ling Xiao put away his long sword. Then he turned around and looked at the rostrum. At this moment, there was not a speck of dust on him, and not a single trace of blood stained his clothes. There was not even a wrinkle on his clothes. It was as if he had not gone through any battle at all. Compared to the 13th prince's sorry state, the difference was like heaven and earth. At this moment, as long as one was not an idiot, one should know how strong Ling Xiao was. Chapter 2720. Ling Xiao defeated the 13th prince with one move. At this moment, everyone could see that Ling Xiao was far stronger than the 13th prince. The 13th prince's real cultivation was at the middle stage of the 10th level of hell. Did Ling Xiao also hide his cultivation? This caused many people to be extremely puzzled. But there was no doubt that Ling Xiao had changed many people's opinion of him. He's too strong. Among the onlookers, the ones who were most surprised were Chen Bai's foster children. Perhaps they had lost confidence after being suppressed for so long. From the very beginning, they had never thought that Ling Xiao could win. However, they had no choice but to believe what they were seeing. The 13th prince did not hide his strength. His last move was almost the strongest battle strength of the middle stage of the 10th level of hell. But he was still defeated so easily. He was defeated by Ling Xiao with one move. Perhaps this time their sect master, their foster father, had really received a good disciple. The third sect leader's face darkened. Ling Xiao won. Furthermore, he had defeated the 13th prince in the most domineering and direct confrontation. The 13th prince was trained by the vice sect leader, Phoenix in the Cloud, to be the puppet king. Now he was easily defeated by Ling Xiao. It would be hard for him to have confidence in the future. Damn it. Ling Xiao not only embarrassed him, but also ruined the vice sect leader's plan. No wonder the sect leader thinks so highly of him. He does have some skills, but even so, he can't be the real Ling Xiao. The third elder still believed that the things that the real Ling Xiao had done were definitely not something that the imposter in front of him could have done. He did not want to admit that the young hero he used to admire was the annoying guy in front of him. Despicable guy. In the crowd, Lu Yan showed a ferocious look. Today, he came to see Ling Xiao make a fool of himself. He did not expect to see Ling Xiao advance and become a middle disciple. This really pissed him off. Zhang Quan and Lu Su lowered their heads. The battle prowess Ling Xiao displayed today had already far surpassed the two of them. Thinking back to how they had been defeated because they had underestimated their opponent, their faces flushed red and they felt their cheeks burning. Third elder, shouldn't you announce that I've been promoted to a middle disciple? Ling Xiao asked with a smile. Of course, no problem. No matter how unwilling the third elder was, he still had to agree. After all, this was something that he had discussed with sect leader Qinbai and announced in public. Since Ling Xiao had defeated the 13th prince, he definitely had the qualifications to become a middle disciple of the dragon cult. Thank you, but I still want to ask, after becoming a middle disciple, how can I become an upper disciple? Ling Xiao could not wait to obtain the qualifications to become an upper disciple, and he also needed to constantly fight to restore his cultivation. Therefore, if he had the chance, he would definitely challenge more people. You still want to become an upper disciple with your current cultivation? The third elder asked in astonishment. Not only was he surprised, even Qinbai was stunned. He did not expect Ling Xiao to be so anxious. My cultivation is not very good, but since I've already become a middle disciple, I should be qualified to become an upper disciple, right? Ling Xiao said with a smile. Well, then I'll tell you. If you want to become an upper disciple, you must first go through a selection and become a substitute upper disciple. If you really want to participate, this old man can add your name. However, this selection will begin tomorrow, and the battles will be even more dangerous. The opponent you will face will not be the trash 13th prince. It is very likely that you will encounter an expert on the level of Lu Yan. Do you really want to do this? The third elder asked with a gloomy face. Since Ling Xiao wanted to court death, why couldn't he create a good opportunity for him to court death? Substitute upper disciple? Although I can't directly be promoted, it should be a necessary step. Okay, I'm willing to participate. Ling Xiao nodded. Disciple, you have to think carefully. A middle disciple is not a lower disciple. Among the middle disciples, their strength ranges from the early stage of the 10th level of hell to the middle stage of the 11th level of hell. If you encounter a martial artist of the 10th level of hell, you may be able to resist, but if you encounter a martial artist of the 11th level of hell, you will lose without a doubt. Moreover, the rules of our dragon cult are very cruel. Once you are crippled, although you can still recover, it will take months or even a year to recover. This is too disadvantageous for you, Chen Bai advised anxiously. Master, I know you care about me, but give your disciple a little more confidence. Ling Xiao blinked and smiled. Moreover, I really need this kind of training. My cultivation method is not the same as ordinary people's. Seeing Ling Xiao's expression, Chen Bai was stunned for a moment, then sighed and said, "Forget it. Master introduces the disciples, and cultivation depends on the individual." Master agrees, but you must be careful. To be honest, Chen Bai did not know much about Ling Xiao, even if he was the leader of the dragon cult, even if he had read a lot of information about Ling Xiao. But Ling Xiao was still a mystery in his eyes, a mystery that could not be solved. Therefore, he also wanted to see what kind of surprise Ling Xiao could give him. He shouldn't be a reckless person. Chen Bai thought, "Okay, since the leader has agreed and you are willing, then from tomorrow onwards, you can participate in the substitute upper disciple selection. The location is still here, but your opponent will not be a lower disciple, but a middle disciple." The third sect elder's eyes flashed with a cold light, and he said eerily, "Okay." Ling Xiao nodded, then turned and left with Chen Bai. Suddenly, he felt a cold gaze on him, and there was a strong sense of resentment in that gaze. At first, Ling Xiao thought it was Lu Yan, Zheng Quan, or Lu Su, but when he turned his head to look, he found that it was a very unfamiliar face. That person was dressed in black, and there was a strong sense of hostility between his eyebrows. Who is this guy? Does he have a grudge against me? But he is quite powerful. I feel that his cultivation should be at the top among the middle disciples. Ling Xiao frowned. It was not a good thing to be targeted by such an expert. Although he was not afraid with his current cultivation, he was definitely not a match for the other party. It was not a good thing to be targeted by such a person. That person is called Yin Shan. Ling Xiao could sense that someone was looking at him, and so could Chen Bai. In order to let Ling Xiao prepare, Chen Bai briefly told Ling Xiao about this person. This Yin Shan is one of the top among the middle disciples. Chapter 27-21. What does the Yin mountain targeting me have to do with you, master? Ling Xiao asked curiously. Chen Bai sighed and smiled bitterly. This child wanted to be my disciple before, but I rejected him when I saw that his aptitude was not as good as Qin Songxiong's. I also said that I would not take any more disciples. Now that I suddenly took you in, he did not dare to blame me, but transferred his anger to you. No wonder this is really an unexpected disaster. Ling Xiao smiled bitterly. Are you scared? Chen Bai asked. Scared? Not to that extent, but it will be a little troublesome to encounter such an enemy so soon. Let's go, master. Today's selection is over, and I still have to prepare for tomorrow's selection. I don't have time to worry about these things. Ling Xiao smiled. Since he wanted to become an upper disciple, he would encounter them sooner or later. It was just that he was targeted earlier. Okay, Chen Bai nodded, and the two of them walked away again. After returning to the Demon Prince Hall, Ling Xiao began to cultivate. His cultivation had just broken through, and he still needed to consolidate it through cultivation. In the dead of night, the bright moonlight poured down from the sky like a pool of clear water. The Demon Prince Hall was quiet. Other than Ling Xiao, Little Jean, and Yi Wuxing, there were only a few servants who were yawning. After a busy day, they were tired. At this time, the hall was very quiet. Suddenly, a black shadow flashed under the moonlight, as fast as a ghost, and in an instant, it was already on the beam of the Demon Prince Hall. Then, it looked coldly at one of the rooms. In that room, there was a faint aura constantly being released, and it should be someone cultivating. Humph, your vigilance is so bad. I might as well kill you now, so as not to waste time. The black shadow smiled coldly and was about to fly into the room. Suddenly, a wolf shadow darted out, and in an instant it was in front of him. It landed steadily on the beam of the room, and then turned into a human shape. The black shadow frowned. It was obvious that he had underestimated the person in the room. Get the hell out of the dragon cult. The black figure stared at the person in front of him and said coldly. Although he was a little surprised, the other party's strength was still incomparable to his. Therefore, he was not nervous at all. Instead, his voice was filled with incomparable arrogance and indifference. Was he going to be this arrogant again? Hearing this, Ling Xiao smiled faintly. Under the moonlight, his cold and handsome face released an aura of disdain. You? Ling Xiao knew the other party. It was Yinshan who had been watching him today. His strength was indeed very strong, but so what? He had seen many such people and was never afraid of them. Yinshan's originally cold eyes suddenly shot out a light that resembled a demonic beast's. He didn't say anything, but the shadow of a pitch-black mountain appeared behind him. The shadows rose and fell continuously, giving off a gloomy and oppressive feeling. Within his body, there was an overwhelming pressure that attacked Ling Xiao, as if there was a huge mountain behind him. It's actually the Yin Mountain martial spirit? It's quite special. Ling Xiao frowned. He really felt that it was a little strange. He had seen many martial spirits, but such a martial spirit was still very rare. Yin Mountain was not an ordinary mountain. It was said that it was the entrance to hell. Therefore, the Yin Mountain martial spirit not only released the terrifying pressure of the mountain, but also the gloomy aura of hell, which made people feel very uncomfortable. Thinking of this, Ling Xiao suddenly became excited. A blood-red sword martial spirit appeared behind him, and the Blood Thunder Emperor sword appeared in his hand. Facing Yinshan, he had no fear, but he did not dare to underestimate him. Blood Thunder Emperor sword? As the rumors say, the sect leader defeated Qin Songxiong and gave you the credit. He even gave you the Blood Thunder Emperor sword. It really makes people jealous. However, the weak are not qualified to become the sect leader's disciple. If you don't want to leave, only death awaits you. Yinshan finally spoke when he saw the Blood Thunder Emperor sword. The moment he finished speaking, his body suddenly turned into a pitch-black shadow, piercing through the darkness and shooting towards Ling Xiao like lightning. Under the moonlight, Yinshan's terrifying attack caused the Yin Mountain martial spirit behind him to stir up a violent wind. The scene was very shocking. The terrifying shadow was constantly magnified in Ling Xiao's eyes. Ling Xiao took a deep breath, and his body gradually transformed into the terrifying tyrant blood demonic dragon beast spirit. Only the tyrant blood demonic dragon beast was more suitable for the Blood Thunder Emperor sword. It could also unleash the power of the Blood Thunder Emperor sword to the extreme. Everyone stop! An angry roar pierced through the void. Yinshan's attack came to an abrupt end. Ling Xiao also withdrew the Blood Thunder Emperor sword. Today's battle was unlikely to continue. A person stood in the middle of them. Under the moonlight, his face was very clear. It was the demon dragon envoy, Chunwan. Chunwan turned his head to look at Yinshan and said coldly, "Yinshan, this is the demon prince's great hall. What do you want?" Yinshan glanced at Chunwan indifferently, cupped his hands, and said, "Greetings, demon dragon envoy. Actually, it's nothing. I just want to compare notes with the famous Ling Xiao. I don't mean any harm. Actually, demon dragon envoy, you don't have to worry. If he is the real Ling Xiao and can defeat General Purple Thunder, how could he not even block one of my attacks? Tomorrow is the substitute selection, and he will have to fight with me sooner or later. Is it possible that your Excellency, Demon Dragon Envoy, still wants to protect him?" "Shut up!" Chunwan shouted sternly. "Do you really think I don't know what you want to do? Considering that you once served the hierarch, I won't do anything to you today. If you continue to cause trouble here, don't blame me for being impolite." His foster father, Chunbai, gave him the most important task at the moment, which was to protect Ling Xiao. With Ling Xiao's current identity, he would definitely be viewed as an enemy by many people. If there was no one to protect him, there would definitely be problems. Hearing Chunwan's words, Yinshan's face became even uglier. In his opinion, He and Chen Wan had known each other for a long time. Even if they weren't friends, they had a good relationship. But today, Chen Wan actually bluntly reprimanded him for Ling Xiao. This made the ball of anger in his heart burn even more vigorously. Why? Why? All the benefits were taken away by this impostor? Those things should have belonged to him. Ling Xiao, if you are still a man, don't hide behind Qinluan. That will only make you look like a coward. Yin Shan wanted to suppress his anger, but it was like a volcanic eruption, becoming more and more vigorous. He furiously looked at Ling Xiao and roared. He hoped that Ling Xiao was an ignorant fool. That way, Chen Wan wouldn't have the qualifications to stop them from fighting. The dragon cult was different from other sections. Private battles were allowed, and there was no need to make an agreement or report. As long as both sides agreed, they could fight anywhere. Chapter 27-22. Impudent. Yin Shan, are you relying on the protection of the first sect elder to look down on me, the demon dragon envoy? Chen Wan was also furious. Perhaps it was due to Ling Xiao's influence, but he no longer wanted to continue being so oppressed after living such a life. That kind of life was really not easy. An extremely terrifying aura erupted from his body. With his cultivation base, killing Yin Shan was as easy as flipping his hand. Big brother Qinluan, I'll settle this myself. A voice sounded indifferently under the night sky. Qinluan was stunned for a moment, then turned to look at Ling Xiao. Are you sure? I'm very sure. Ling Xiao chuckled and said, let me do it. Such an opponent is very rare. Chen Wan hesitated for a moment before nodding and said, all right, since you said so, I'll listen to you. This is also my foster father's order. Although he did not know where Ling Xiao's confidence came from. Since Ling Xiao had brought it up as a man, he could not stop a duel between men. Ling Xiao looked at Yin Shan again and attacked with the Blood Thunder Imperial Sword again. He smiled and said, since we're going to fight, how about we have a life and death duel today? No one will regret it if you die. He wanted to force himself into a dead end. Only by putting himself in a dead end could he recover his cultivation base faster. He did not have time to wait because he believed that Chen Songxiong would not give him so much time. While he was recovering his cultivation base, Chen Songxiong might be improving his cultivation base. The longer the time, the greater the gap between the two of them. Therefore, Ling Xiao wanted to create a battle environment with no way out for himself. This way, he would have a way to recover faster. Of course, since there was no way out, there was the danger of death. However, it was better than waiting to be killed by Chen Songxiong. He had already done the most precise analysis of the danger level in these two aspects. If you want to die, I'll definitely fulfill your wish. Yin Shan was stunned for a moment, then immediately revealed an excited smile. He really didn't expect that Ling Xiao would actually take the initiative to propose a life and death duel with him. Originally, he wanted to bring it up, but he was afraid that Ling Xiao would reject him out of fear, so he didn't say it. Now that the other party had given him such a great gift, what reason did he have to not accept it? Furthermore, when he saw how protective Qinluan was of Ling Xiao, he was extremely displeased. In terms of talent, cultivation, and loyalty, which part of him was inferior to Ling Xiao? But why was it like this? He refused to accept this. Just as Ling Xiao was about to engage in a death match with Yin Shan, a beam of golden light shot out from the Devil Air Hull. That was Xiao Jin's signal. Someone had snuck into the Devil Prince's great hall in an attempt to harm Dark Knight. In an instant, Ling Xiao calmed down. He looked coldly at Yin Shan and said, if anything happens to the Mountain Lord, I will definitely kill you. In his opinion, Yin Shan was definitely together with the person who had infiltrated the Fiend Sun's hull. Even if they didn't communicate previously, they were definitely accomplices. This was because the timing of Yin Shan's arrival and that person's arrival was too coincidental. He never believed that there would be such a coincidence in the world. If you're afraid, then so be it. Don't make so many excuses. Yin Shan said coldly. Excuses? The upper substitute selection will begin tomorrow. The two of us will meet sooner or later. If you want a life and death duel, I'll accompany you to the end. Ling Xiao didn't want to continue talking nonsense with Yin Shan. He turned around and headed towards where He Yezi was. Ling Xiao, I really hope that you won't be eliminated so soon. Tomorrow, you will face Lu Yan and defeat him. It will be quite difficult for you. Don't fall in the ring like a piece of trash. That will make me feel ashamed. I actually lost to a piece of trash like you in the competition for the qualifications to become the sect master's disciple. Looking at Ling Xiao, who was leaving, Yin Shan said coldly, "Whoosh!" Suddenly, the sound of air being torn apart was heard. A terrifying force pierced through the air, smashing the moonlight and ruthlessly stabbing towards Yin Shan's glabella. Sensing the terrifying force, Yin Shan was stunned for a moment. However, it was only for an instant. Then he raised his hand and released a strong wind that collided with the attack. At this moment, he realized that the thing that flew towards him was actually a leaf. However, the leaf was like a sharp blade that cut through his attack before it was shattered. Yin Shan, instead of complaining like a resentful woman, why don't you defeat me in the selection competition? That way, you'll show that you're capable. Don't you think you're an idiot for talking so much? If you want to prove that you're more suitable to be the sect master's disciple than me, you'd better show me the real deal. Chen Wan had already gone to help little Jean, so Ling Xiao had the time to talk nonsense with Yin Shan. If you lose, will you voluntarily leave the dragon cult? Yin Shan said coldly, "Of course, the prerequisite is that you have the strength." Ling Xiao said this and turned to leave. Standing alone in the cold night wind, Yin Shan took a deep breath and then clenched his fists tightly. "A fake dares to look down on me. Fine, since you want to compete with me, then I'll defeat you fair and square in the selection competition. I'll show the sect master that you're inferior to me and that you're not qualified to be his disciple." Yin Shan gritted his teeth and turned to leave. He came to the room where Nightfall Formless was placed. Ling Xiao saw a person lying on the ground. Little Jean and Chen Wan were standing beside him. That person had already committed suicide. It was obvious that when he came here, he had already decided not to expose the person behind him. Ling Xiao sneered and walked over to grab the person. Soul assimilation. A person had just died and their soul had not left their body, so soul assimilation was still effective. A moment later, he said coldly, "As expected, it's the third sect elder's doing. He first let this trash ambush the sect master in the middle of the night, then let Yin Shan provoke me at this time and lure me away. In this way, they could have succeeded. It's a pity that they miscalculated little Jin's strength. Otherwise, they would have succeeded. Boss, what should we do next?" Little Jean asked. "Don't make a fuss. It's not the time to deal with the third sect elder yet. Let's endure for now." Ling Xiao thought for a moment and said, "When I recover my cultivation, it will be the third sect elder's death." Chen Wan looked at Ling Xiao in surprise. He thought that Ling Xiao was a reckless person who did things his own way. He did not expect Ling Xiao to know how to endure. "Don't be so surprised, Brother Chinwan. I'm not an idiot. If I still provoke an opponent I know I can't defeat, that's not courage, it's courting death." Ling Xiao smiled helplessly and said, "Let's call it a day. Brother Chinwan, you should go back and have a good rest. Since we already know who the mastermind is, I'll have to decorate the Fiend Air Hall properly." Previously, he wanted to bait, so he did not set up a formation in the Fiend Air Hall, which allowed the assassin to sneak in. Chapter 27-23. The next day, the demonic Dragon City Square was already packed with people. Compared to the middle disciple selection, the substitute upper disciple selection was even more eye-catching. Ling Xiao had also arrived early. Although he did not know who his opponent was, he was eager for the selection to start as soon as possible. For others, it might be better to cultivate in seclusion, but for him, continuous battles would help him recover and improve his cultivation. "Disciple, I have something to tell you. If you can get into the top 3 of the substitute upper disciple selection. You must get it. Chanbai suddenly said, Why? What's the difference? Ling Xiao asked curiously. Of course it's different. There are a total of 10 substitute upper disciple selection. But only the top 3 are qualified to go to the dragon cult's demonic book hall. Chunbai smiled. Demonic book hall? Is it a place where martial arts classics are kept? Ling Xiao asked. Yes, it's that kind of place. In fact, the martial artists who participate in the substitute upper disciple selection all have the idea of entering the demonic book hall. It's just that some have the ability and some don't. Chunbai smiled and explained. Don't you want to get the 4 supreme martial arts of the dragon cult? As long as you can get the first place of the substitute upper disciple selection, you'll be qualified to get the magic dragon's phantom. If you get the 2nd or 3rd place, you'll get a 2nd heaven of divine grade martial arts. Oh, Ling Xiao could not help but smile when he heard this. He could get the magic dragon's phantom in advance. This was very meaningful to him. The magic dragon's phantom was a 3rd heaven of divine grade martial arts. It would be more useful to learn it earlier. It should be known that most of the first transformation Yin-Yang realm level 11 hell were only good at the 1st heaven of divine grade martial arts. Only a few geniuses could get the 2nd heaven of divine grade martial arts. If Ling Xiao could master the 3rd heaven of divine grade martial arts, he would be 1 step ahead of the others. That's great. Master, your words are too timely. Don't worry, I'll work hard. I'll definitely strive to get 1st place. Although Ling Xiao was also interested in a 2nd heaven divine grade martial art, since there was a better one, he naturally had to choose a better one. With your current cultivation, I'm afraid it'll still be somewhat difficult, unless you can continuously increase your cultivation in battle and return to your original realm. Once you recover, there are only 3 or 4 people who can truly pose a threat to you. However, they were all middle disciples of Yin Mountain and were not easy to deal with. At this stage, it's already very difficult for you to meet Lu Yan. I hope you don't meet him. As Chanbai, of course, he hoped that his disciple could perform better in the selection. That way, he would be able to look good. But Ling Xiao thought differently from him. He really wanted to meet a stronger opponent. Soon, the selection competition began. There were quite a number of people participating in the substitute upper position selection. There were at least 1,000 people. However, compared to the tens of thousands of middle disciples, it was still very little. Among these 1,000 people, Ling Xiao's cultivation on the surface was naturally the lowest. Martial artists like Zhang Quan and Lu Su did not dare to participate in this kind of selection, because not only would they not gain any benefits in battle, but they would also wear down their confidence. Therefore, among the martial artists participating in this selection, the weakest cultivation was at the late stage of the 10th level of hell. Of course, they had to exclude Ling Xiao. This guy was an exception. Ling Xiao did not even bother to watch the battles before him. He sat there and silently circulated the potential in his body, preparing to charge forward. This way, once he fought, the chances of his cultivation breaking through would be higher. After a full 2 hours, Ling Xiao finally heard his name. In the next selection, Lu Yan will go against Ling Xiao. Hearing this, he slowly opened his eyes. At this moment, almost everyone's eyes were on him. Among these gazes, most of them did not have good intentions. It was as if they were all waiting to see Ling Xiao make a fool of himself. Chen Wan laughed bitterly and said, "Brother Ling, you can't lose. These people are all waiting to see you make a fool of yourself. They know that Lu Yan is a martial artist at the peak of the 10th level of Yin-Yang realm. He is definitely not someone that the 13th prince can compare to. His strength, even when compared to the other middle disciples, was considered to be above average. Moreover, because he is the grandson of the 3rd sect elder, he has a very powerful treasure on him. It is said that it can absorb the opponent's qi and blood. Taking it out at a critical moment will make the opponent feel very uncomfortable. A treasure that can absorb qi and blood? Hearing this, Ling Xiao laughed in his heart. That's good. I want to see if your treasure is more powerful, or if my bloodthirsty plague is more powerful. However, you better be able to last until I use the bloodthirsty plague. Otherwise, it will be too disappointing. Who knows? The demonic dragon blood curse might take care of you. Ling Xiao did not know to what extent he could perform against Lu Yan, because his cultivation could break through at any time. As long as he broke through, the difficulty of dealing with Lu Yan would be greatly reduced. He would not even need to use his sun god's ability. Disciple, work hard. Try your best to display your strongest strength. Let that old fellow, the third sect elder, see that I, Chen Bai's disciple, not just for show. Chen Bai himself was very strong, but his adopted son and daughter were not that strong. The feeling of being suppressed by others was not good at all. I probably won't lose. However, I have no control over the battle situation. Ling Xiao sighed. Who asked him to go crazy? Even he was afraid of himself. He stood up, turned into the shadow of a wolf, and instantly arrived on the arena. His graceful figure caused many female disciples of the dragon cult to cry out in surprise. However, his foundation was still too shallow. Their cries of surprise were quickly suppressed by an even louder cheer. That was because Lu Yan had entered the arena. Lu Yan really knew how to show off. He purposely spun a few beautiful circles in the air before landing gracefully. Dressed in white, he really did look like an elegant young master. In his hand, he was holding a fan. At a glance, this fan was not an ordinary item. It was a divine grade spirit weapon. It was of the same grade as Ling Xiao's 8 immortal swords. The moment he landed on the ground, a tsunami of crazy cheers and cheers erupted from the crowd. It could be heard that most of the people in the dragon cult still hoped that Lu Yan, the elegant young master, could defeat Ling Xiao, the impostor. If you can't even pass Lu Yan, what right do you have to compete with me for the qualification of being the sect master's disciple? To be honest, I really hope that you win. However, I really don't see any hope of you winning. Lu Yan is not trash like 13. After the third sect elder's guidance, he is about to break through to the 11th level of hell. Against him, you have no chance of winning. I want to see what right a trash like you has to compete with me. Chapter 27-24. Yinshan, it seems like you hate that kid. Beside Yinshan sat a beautiful girl. She was wearing a fiery red dress and was very eye-catching. This girl looked young, but the aura she released seemed to be even more terrifying than Yinshan. He's not worthy to be the sect leader's disciple. Yinshan said coldly. I hate him too. This guy actually dared to use my idol's name. I must beat him up until he changes his name. The girl giggled. Yinshan frowned. He was absolutely fearful of the girl beside him. This girl was one of the direct disciples of the first sect elder. In just a month's time, she went from a lower disciple to the strongest middle disciple. Needless to say, her talent was a little abnormal. If someone dared to snatch or talk about what she had set her eyes on, she would retaliate with all her might until she beat the other party until they gave in. Therefore, this girl's name seemed to have been forgotten by others. Everyone called her the Red Witch. The Red Witch seemed to like this name very much. So much so that everyone called her that now. Perhaps her real name could only be hidden in the dragon cult's book. The two of us meet again. In the arena, Lu Yan looked at Ling Xiao with a smile. You won't be able to smile in a while. Ling Xiao said indifferently. Speaking of which, I have to thank the third sect elder. He didn't hesitate to cheat to arrange you as my opponent. Do you want me to be your stepping stone to get rid of your inner demons and soar again? Unfortunately, you will only be my stepping stone. Arrogant. This was not the first time Lu Yan confronted Ling Xiao. Last time, he felt that Ling Xiao was very arrogant. This time, this feeling was even more obvious. Whatever you say. If I don't defeat you, how can I get first place? Ling Xiao smiled faintly. What did you say? Lu Yan was stunned for a moment, then suddenly laughed wildly. Did I hear wrongly? Even I don't dare to say that I can successfully advance to the upper substitute. As for the top 3, there's no hope. You trash, you actually want to get first place? Can you please be a little more humble? Then I'm sorry. I don't like to be modest. The greater the power, the greater the desire. Why must I be modest? Ling Xiao said coldly. All right, then I'll beat you until you're humble. Lu Yan's face was fuming with anger. Clearly, he was greatly angered by Ling Xiao. All right, enough talking. Let the battle begin. The head of the 3rd sect announced the start of the match from the referee's seat. Senior brother Lu Yan, don't give face to that impostor. Defeat him and show him the might of our dragon cult. That's right. Not everyone has the right to look down on us. As soon as the 3rd elder's voice fell, a burst of cheers came from the audience. These shouts were mostly from male disciples. This was because after Ling Xiao came to the dragon cult, not only did he become Qinbai's last disciple, but because of his outstanding appearance and outstanding performance, he was deeply loved by the girls, although there were some girls who resented him for using the name Ling Xiao. But even in the mystic world, there were times when looks mattered. Moreover, not only was Ling Xiao handsome, but he was also very strong. Yesterday, Ling Xiao had easily defeated the 13th prince, which had won the popularity of many female disciples. Although these popularity could not suppress the loud shouts of the male disciples, but it was still quite enviable. Why is this kid so popular with the girls? How long has it been since he came to the dragon cult? Chan Wan could not help but shake his head and smile bitterly. Big brother, you don't understand. Someone like Ling Xiao, who is handsome and strong, is the easiest to be liked. One of Chen Bai's adopted daughters said, as if she was infatuated. I've lost to you guys. Chen Wan shook his head helplessly, but he also hoped that Ling Xiao could win. Only when Ling Xiao defeated Lu Yan could he let those who doubted and looked down on him know how strong he was. Although Ling Xiao could hear those shouts, he did not care. In his eyes there was only Lu Yan. This battle was too important to him. Not only did he have to win, but he also had to successfully break through. Otherwise, he would not be able to achieve his goal. In order to successfully break through, he did not want to defeat his opponent too quickly. Therefore, he waved his hand, and what appeared was not the 8 immortal swords or the Blood Thunder Emperor sword, but the white jade flying dragon sword. It was an immortal grade spiritual weapon. With the white jade flying dragon sword in hand, a sharp sword aura suddenly rose from Ling Xiao's body, as if it was going to pierce the sky. Please, senior brother Lu Yan, Ling Xiao said lightly. Feeling the sharp sword aura rising from Ling Xiao, Lu Yan frowned slightly. His originally frivolous expression instantly turned serious. He waved the cold iron fan in his hand, and a vigorous aura burst out from his body. Looks like you're stronger than yesterday. Interesting, but you're still not my match. Lu Yan did not want to lose, so he had to go all out. Suddenly, a willow tree appeared behind him. Willow Martial Soul. There did not seem to be anything special about it, but as his opponent, Ling Xiao could feel that each willow branch was like a sharp weapon. It could easily pierce through the enemy's body. This martial soul was not easy to deal with. At that moment, both inside and outside the arena became quiet, as if they knew that there would be an exciting battle. Everyone began to pay attention to the battle itself, unwilling to miss any details. In the arena, 2 auras with completely different styles confronted each other in the sky. A sharp sword aura. It was filled with vigorous energy. Suddenly, the 2 auras became heated. They became excited. Then, everyone felt their vision blur. The 2 figures who were paying close attention in the arena suddenly left their original positions and rushed toward each other. Boom! In just a moment, the 2 weapons exploded in the middle of the arena. The terrifying force spread out, forming a series of sonic booms. In the audience, many people could only see two blurred figures constantly flying in the arena. As for which figure was Ling Xiao and which one was Lu Yan, they could only be identified by color. Lu Yan was a white figure. Ling Xiao was a blue figure wrapped in thunder and lightning. The two figures constantly collided with each other. The terrifying impact caused cracks to appear on the originally intact arena. Fortunately, the arena had a powerful repair function. Otherwise, the arena would be completely destroyed before the battle ended. In the arena, Ling Xiao did not meet force with force at the beginning because his cultivation was not as good as Lu Yan's. Relying on his excellent body movement, he wandered around Lu Yan and occasionally stabbed with his sword, which made Lu Yan very uncomfortable. Lu Yan's attacks, on the other hand, were basically large-scale attacks. His speed was not as fast as Ling Xiao, so he could only do this. However, relying on his vigorous internal force, he was not afraid of consumption. Chapter 27-25. In the field, the two figures flickered like two rays of light intertwining together. Streams of energy gushed out from the two's weapons like waterfalls and then collided with each other. The terrifying energy ripples that spread out made the surrounding martial artists feel a huge pressure. This guy is so fast, like a ghost. I can't even touch his clothes. The cold iron fan in his hand kept waving, and every time there would be dozens of streams of energy shooting out, each with a sharp killing intent, attacking Ling Xiao from different angles. However, no matter how hard Lu Yan tried, Ling Xiao's ghostly figure would always be able to dodge at the most critical moment and even launch a counterattack. That sharp sword qi, like a poisonous snake, made him not dare to be careless. As the battle continued, the expression of underestimating the enemy on Lu Yan's face had completely disappeared. Even his relaxed state of mind became solemn and serious. The strength that Ling Xiao displayed was enough for him to go all out. I won't underestimate you anymore, not even the slightest bit, Lu Yan muttered to himself, and the speed of the cold iron fan in his hand suddenly increased. Not only that, every time he attacked, there would be a red light wrapped around the energy. As long as this red light was released, it would make Ling Xiao feel his qi and blood surging, and it was very uncomfortable. This must be his magic treasure. Ling Xiao secretly guessed. It was indeed difficult to deal with. The closer he got, the more troublesome it was. It seemed that this guy was really going to be serious. Just as he was thinking, Lu Yan's valiant attack suddenly came. Countless willow branches, wrapped in a terrifying red light, pierced towards Ling Xiao's head. Spirit commandeering lightning light shield. At the critical moment, Ling Xiao hurriedly retreated, and at the same time he used the first level of the immortal grade defensive martial skill. Although this defensive martial skill was obtained when he was in the 8th immortal city, it was very rare even among the middle disciples of the dragon cult. After all, defensive martial skills were even rarer than offensive martial skills. Boom! The terrifying attack blasted on the spirit commandeering lightning light shield. Although most of the energy was blocked, that blood-red light passed through the spirit commandeering lightning light shield and enveloped Ling Xiao's entire body. In this blood-red light, Ling Xiao looked like he could not resist at all. However, those with discerning eyes noticed that Ling Xiao's body seemed to be wrapped in a layer of blood-red armor, like a demonic dragon. It quickly covered him completely. Tyrant blood, demonic dragon, martial soul transformation. At the same time, the tyrant blood, demonic dragon, swallowed the blood-red light. This light entered Ling Xiao's body and madly stirred up his blood and qi, attempting to cause his blood and qi to explode and die. However, this terrifying external energy triggered the resistance of the energy hidden in Ling Xiao's cells. A tremendous amount of potential energy gushed out from his cells, encompassing the royal heaven queen of Earth's powers and pressing out toward the blood-red energy. A terrifying battle unfolded within Ling Xiao's body. After a short while, Ling Xiao felt that a certain barrier in his body had been opened. His cultivation had recovered by another level. He had reached the middle stage of the 10th level of hell. This kind of breakthrough was even easier than yesterday. After all, he was going to break through a major realm yesterday, but today he was only going to break through a small realm. Ling Xiao, who had broken through in an instant, had a tenfold increase in his combat strength. His internal energy surged like a flood. His speed also increased by a lot. At this moment, Ling Xiao turned defense into attack. He pulled open the spirit-commandeering lightning light shield and suddenly stabbed out. The shadow sword demon appeared and stabbed at Lu Yan's throat. Lu Yan reacted quickly and hurriedly blocked with the cold iron fan in his hand. It was only because the cold iron fan was of a higher grade than the white jade flying dragon sword in Ling Xiao's hand that it was hard to say. Although this sword did not pierce through the cold iron fan, it produced a terrifying impact that sent Lu Yan flying dozens of steps away. If the arena was not big enough, Lu Yan would have fallen off. Lu Yan rolled on the ground a few times in a sorry state before standing up. Seeing that Ling Xiao did not chase after him, he was a little shocked and a little angry, because Ling Xiao's face was full of laughter, a mocking smile. The storm-like confrontation just now stopped in an instant. Everyone saw this scene in the arena. Lu Yan was actually rolling on the ground and almost fell off the arena. What was going on? You broke through again? Freak! Lu Yan could clearly feel that Ling Xiao's combat strength had increased a lot. Previously, he could be evenly matched with his opponent and even had a slight advantage. But after Ling Xiao broke through, he was completely suppressed. Even the magic treasure given to him by the third sect did not have any effect on Ling Xiao. At this moment, he did not look very good. Lu Yan, don't hold back. Since Ling Xiao is so strong, you don't have to be afraid of killing him. Use that. The third sect elder suddenly said loudly. Grandson understands. Lu Yan stood up in a sorry state and wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. He said coldly, Ling Xiao, you will regret it. Just now. You should have taken advantage of me underestimating my opponent and defeated me. You won't be able to resist what I'm going to use next. You will definitely lose miserably. No need to talk nonsense. Just attack. If I'm afraid of you, I'm not Ling Xiao. Ling Xiao looked at Lu Yan and said coldly. If he did not want to see what other trump cards Lu Yan had that could help him recover his cultivation again, he would have already attacked him. He had already defeated this fellow a long time ago. How could he have the time to listen to this fellow's nonsense? Don't be too proud. I'll tell you the truth. What I'm best at is not close combat. It's a special doppelganger battle technique. I once obtained a powerful martial skill in the Qin Kingdom's capital, called Heavenly Thunder Doppelganger. As he spoke, Lu Yan's aura suddenly erupted. Then, hundreds of doppelgangers appeared around him. The most peculiar thing was that the willow martial spirit could actually infuse each doppelganger with a special wedding. It made these doppelgangers even stronger. They almost had half of Lu Yan's strength. However, Ling Xiao had a strange expression on his face when he saw the scene. Are you sure this is what you're best at? Ling Xiao asked. Are you sure you're not playing with me? Humph. You think doppelgangers are useless, but you're wrong. Each of my 100 doppelgangers has half of my strength. In addition to the uniqueness of my willow martial spirit, they can take root in the earth and continuously absorb the power of the earth. Thus, my doppelgangers can be used repeatedly. Lu Yan snorted coldly. So what? Ling Xiao asked back. So what? My modified Heavenly Thunder Doppelganger has once injured an elite of the first transformation's 11th level of hell. Lu Yan wanted to see fear, uneasiness, and panic on Ling Xiao's face. However, he realized in despair that Ling Xiao might not have any fear cells at all. But now, there was a hint of anger on his face. Are you playing with me? I'm so looking forward to seeing you, and you're using this to fool me? Chapter 27-26. Ling Xiao was really angry. He thought Lu Yan's trump card was very powerful. In the end, it was just the same as Ji Hyun of Scylla's trump card, but slightly modified. Absorb the power of the earth? I control the earth of the Emperor Heaven. Why would I let you absorb this earth? I'm not joking. I don't have time to joke with you. You don't know how powerful my doppelganger is. Lu Yan couldn't accept Ling Zhao's expression. What did he mean? Did he think that his move was too weak? Shut up. It's really shameful that I have such high expectations of you. Ling Zhao gritted his teeth. All of a sudden, 8 heavenly thunder guards, formed by heavenly thunder, appeared beside him. Each heavenly thunder guards had 80% of his combat strength. They could completely crush Lu Yan's so-called doppelganger. He had used this move against Ji Hyun of Scylla before. Heavenly Thunder Guards was the advanced martial art of Heavenly Thunder doppelganger. The moment he used it, many warriors with good eyesight were stunned. Even Lu Yan was completely dumbfounded. He had practiced Heavenly Thunder doppelganger before, so he naturally knew how terrifying Heavenly Thunder Guards were. No wonder Ling Zhao looked down on his trump card. He knew Heavenly Thunder Guards of a higher level. Why would he be afraid of him? There were also waves of exclamations in the stands. I heard that the real Ling Zhao knows Heavenly Thunder Guards. Could it be that he's the real one and not a fake one? The 3 sect elders are slandering him? Oh my God, I can't believe that this guy knows such a powerful move. What an impressive move. Voices of discussion rose and fell one after another, causing the 3 elders' expressions to turn ugly. They used to think that Ling Zhao was a fake, but at this moment they finally had to believe that this was the real Ling Zhao. Otherwise, how could there be a move like the Heavenly Thunder Divine Guard? But they couldn't accept it. The young hero that they had secretly admired had now become Chen Bai's disciple. Humph, who cares if he's real or not? In any case, there's clearly something wrong with his current cultivation. He's probably been heavily injured in battle, and that's why he's like this. We have to deal with him as soon as possible. The first elder snorted coldly. That's right. Those who follow me will prosper, and those who oppose me will perish. Although I admired him before, he should never have become Chen Bai's disciple. The second elder nodded in agreement. As the sect leader, Chen Bai was also staring at Ling Zhao with mixed emotions. He didn't know all of Ling Zhao's trump cards. This was because Ling Zhao had never revealed all his trump cards in front of outsiders. Sometimes he even suspected that if this disciple of his used all his trump cards, even the upper disciples might not be able to gain an advantage in front of him. Among the middle disciples, Lu Yan was already above average. His aptitude was also considered very good. It was a pity that he had met Ling Zhao. He could only become this freak's experience bag. The talent that this ordinary kid from Yuhua Town possessed was probably unrivaled by anyone. On the other side, Yin Shan's face was a little gloomy when he saw Ling Zhao display the Heavenly Thunder Guards. He didn't expect Ling Zhao to have such a powerful move. This should be a martial art of the second heaven of the immortal grade. Even in the dragon cult, only the upper disciples could cultivate a martial art of the second heaven of the immortal grade. This was going to be difficult to deal with. Yinshan, are you afraid? It's just a secondary skill of the second heaven of the immortal grade. Don't forget, Lu Yan's Heavenly Thunder Doppelganger was easily broken by you. Ling Zhao only has 8 Heavenly Thunder Guards. You just have to avoid them and directly attack Ling Zhao's body. Generally, martial artists who are good at this kind of special martial art are relatively weak in close combat. The Red Witch said with a smile. Yin Shan frowned and said, is it really that easy? If he's the real Ling Zhao, his close combat ability won't be too weak. Red Witch, I know you think highly of yourself, but this Ling Zhao is definitely not simple. Looks like I have to stop underestimating him. You're right, but that Ling Zhao's cultivation is too weak. Don't tell me you're afraid of a martial artist of that level. As long as you defeat him, although sect leader Chen Bai might not choose you to be his last disciple, Ling Zhao probably won't be able to stay here anymore. At that time, you'll have vented your anger. That's right. Whether he has such a martial art or not, I'll definitely defeat him." Yin Shan's originally perplexed expression instantly regained its clarity. He looked at Ling Xiao in the arena. "I hope you can defeat Lu Yan. Otherwise, wouldn't my cautiousness become a joke? I'm going to completely defeat you in front of the sect leader. I want you to never have the face to stay in the dragon cult. Come on, Ling Xiao. Let me see how strong the Heavenly Thunder Divine Guard that you're so proud of is. How dare you mock me like this?" On the arena, Lu Yan finally gradually recovered his calm, suppressing the rage in his heart that soared to the sky. He believed that as long as he defeated Ling Xiao, then Ling Xiao's mockery of him would become self-mockery. He didn't dare to say anything else, but this modified Heavenly Thunder Divine clone was a move that he, Lu Yan, was proud of. "It's better for you to attack. Otherwise, you won't have a second chance to attack." Ling Xiao looked at Lu Yan indifferently. His mood gradually calmed down. Although Lu Yan's Heavenly Thunder Divine clone disappointed him, as long as he devoured these 100 Heavenly Thunder Divine clones, his cultivation should break through again and recover to a higher realm. This was not a bad result. "As you wish." Lu Yan was originally a little worried that Ling Xiao would use his rapid speed to deal with his real body, but now it seemed that Ling Xiao didn't have such thoughts at all. Whether he didn't think of it or not, it was extremely beneficial to him anyway. He waved his hands, and the 100 Heavenly Thunder Divine clones madly pounced on Ling Xiao. Almost the entire arena was filled with sky-blue divine clones. "It's time to end this." Ling Xiao took a deep breath and waved his hand. 8 Heavenly Thunder Divine Guards rushed out, although they were at an absolute disadvantage in terms of numbers. But the 8 Heavenly Thunder Divine Guards were like tigers in a flock of sheep and began a crazy slaughter. Every time a Heavenly Thunder Divine clone was destroyed, the energy would flow into Ling Xiao's body and break through the next cultivation barrier. After all, it was just restoring his cultivation, so Ling Xiao's current cultivation speed was probably faster than before. When there were only a dozen or so Heavenly Thunder Divine clones left, Ling Xiao's cultivation finally broke through again. He recovered to the late stage of the 10th level of Hell in Yin Yang Realm. At this time, Lu Yan was in a state of extreme confusion. He didn't understand why his Heavenly Thunder Divine clones couldn't be restored and why he couldn't draw the power of the earth from the ground. He could only watch as all his clones were completely destroyed. "I lost." With his Heavenly Thunder Divine clones completely destroyed, Lu Yan had no way to turn the tables. Chapter 27:27. Lu Yan knelt on the ground and looked at the ground with confused eyes. Originally, after the third elder's advice, he had recovered from the shadow of defeat. But today, Ling Xiao had once again sent him into a bottomless abyss. He was unable to extricate himself from the abyss of defeat. "Judges, shouldn't you announce the result?" After waiting for a long time, Ling Xiao looked at the judges and asked coldly. The third elder's face was ashen, but he had to respond. Lu Yan had admitted defeat, so the battle naturally had to be declared over. This round, Ling Xiao wins. Boom! As the third elder's announcement rang out, the entire square burst into cheers like a volcanic eruption. Ling Xiao had used his own strength to prove himself. He had turned the rumors of him being an imposter into a complete joke. Countless people who hated Ling Xiao for using this name had become his fans at this moment. Perhaps after this battle, Ling Xiao had truly established his foundation in the dragon cult. He was no longer an imposter, but a true young hero in many people's hearts. Those who had doubts about sect leader Qin Bai's judgment had also completely let go of their doubts. Although this sect leader had misjudged people before, and the adopted son and daughter he had chosen were not outstanding. But this time he had made the right choice. Putting away the white jade flying dragon sword, Ling Xiao did not even look at Lu Yan as he turned and walked back to his seat. At this moment, Countless blazing lights stared at him, no longer hatred but admiration. Before Ling Xiao could return to his seat, a group of youthful and lively beautiful girls suddenly appeared in front of him. These beautiful girls were all female disciples of the dragon cult, and all of them were very attractive. When they saw Ling Xiao return, their eyes were shining with heart-shaped lights. All kinds of fragrances kept floating towards Ling Xiao, and Ling Xiao was really overwhelmed. "That's enough. Ling Xiao has just finished the battle and is still tired. Can you let him rest?" Chen Wan stood up like a flower protector and blocked the group of beautiful girls, giving Ling Xiao some peace. To be liked by so many female disciples, although it was not a bad thing. Ling Xiao's biggest headache was these voices. When he was in the Celestial Empire, he seemed to have encountered similar things, and every time he would run away. The dignified Celestial Emperor was actually afraid of the pursuit of girls. It was really funny. But there was no way. Ling Xiao was not afraid of strong opponents, but he was afraid of these. "Good disciple, do you want me to help you find one? You've always been single. How can you not have a woman to accompany you?" Qin Bai also joked. "Master, don't make fun of me. Moreover, I already have someone I love in my heart, and it will never change in this life." Ling Xiao thought of Yufeng Hua and wondered how she was now. After returning to the Eternal Life Palace, would she be fine? When he thought of the love in his heart, his determination became even stronger. If he was not strong enough, he would not even have the ability to pursue his love. With his current cultivation, if he wanted to go to the Eternal Life Palace, he would probably be killed on the way, and he would not be able to see Yufeng Hua. Collecting his emotions, Ling Xiao entered a meditative state again. He had just broken through 2 levels, and although it was just to recover his cultivation, he still had to settle down. At this moment, the battle in the field was still ongoing. However, after the battle between Ling Xiao and Lu Yan, it seemed that the following battles did not arouse everyone's interest. In fact, Ling Xiao had fought many battles, but his opponents were basically defeated in a single move, and the battle was extremely boring. This did not make the audience feel satisfied at all. The opponents of Yin Mountain and the Red, which basically all gave up. However, they did not fight with Ling Xiao in the end. Obviously, in order to protect the outstanding warriors, in the following arrangements, the top 10 middle disciples were not allowed to fight. In the end, through these battles, 30 candidates were selected. The selection had already lasted for 3 days. Ling Xiao's cultivation had quietly advanced to the peak of the first transformation of the 10th level of hell, and his energy was almost completely full. However, he now needed a challenging battle. Ordinary opponents were no longer able to stimulate him to break through, and this opportunity came very quickly. Only 10 people were needed for the upper substitute, but now there were 30 people left, which meant that there should be more battles to be fought. On the 4th day, the 30 people who survived the selection came to a larger field. This was the wasteland outside the Devil Dragon City. On the wasteland, there were only weeds that were a foot long and nothing else. Even the demonic beasts were all driven away. This huge field, which covered an area of more than 1,000 acres, was the venue for the final battle. And on this day, countless people poured into this wasteland. Not only were there middle disciples, but there were also a few upper disciples. They were all here to enjoy this battle. In fact, most people knew what to do in this last battle, because this was how the selection of the upper substitute had been done in the past. The 30 people would all be thrown on this wasteland, and then a certain area would be drawn. Within this area, a big chaotic battle would begin. They would be ranked according to the order of elimination. For example, the last person to be eliminated would be the first, and so on. In the previous selection, Ling Xiao, Yin Mountain, and the Red, which had all displayed very powerful combat strength. In addition to the 3 of them, there were 7 other people who performed exceptionally well. Their cultivation had all reached the 11th level of hell. As a result, these 10 people became the focus of everyone's hearts, especially Ling Xiao, whose cultivation was not as good as the other 9 people, and for some reason he seemed to be madly envied by many opponents. whether it was the identity of the last disciple of the cult master, or the glory of being pursued by the female disciples of the dragon cult. All of these made Ling Xiao the target of public criticism. Ling Xiao even suspected that this so-called big chaotic battle would become a battle between him and 30 people. However, even in the most troublesome situation, his real opponents were actually only a dozen or so. The rest were not a problem, because those guys might not even be able to defeat his heavenly thunder divine guards. When Ling Xiao, Chen Bai, and Chen Wan arrived at the wasteland together, they found that the surroundings were so tightly packed that not even a drop of water could trickle through. There was not even a path to enter. Fortunately, the organization of the dragon cult was not bad. They specially opened up a path for the contestants to enter, so he could enter and sit on the seat that was prepared in advance. However, the clamorous cheers in front of him, as well as the constant discussion, still made Ling Xiao a little shocked. The power of the dragon cult was really not small. Chapter 27-28. The more people there were, the more it showed how much attention this battle was receiving. Suddenly, an even louder cheer came from the direction of the passageway. Ling Xiao looked back and saw Yin Shan walking towards him. He looked at Yin Shan. Yin Shan was also looking at him. "You're finished." Yin Shan's lips did not move, but he used soul telepathy to provoke Ling Xiao. Ling Xiao just smiled at his provocation and could not be bothered to respond. It was useless to say anything to an idiot like him. Only by ruthlessly defeating him and letting him understand your strength would he truly fear you. When all 30 contestants appeared on the scene, the third elder finally began to announce the rules of this battle. In the past, the final battle was always in the form of a chaotic battle, which is also the style of our dragon cult. This year is no exception, because only this battle style can truly reflect a martial artist's ability to adapt to the changing situation in a real battle. After all, a one-on-one battle is very rare in a real battle. The third elder's words confirmed Ling Xiao's speculation. "Ling Xiao, you have to be careful. These 30 people are all disciples of the 3 patriarchs and the 2 vice-patriarchs. They will definitely eliminate you first." Chen Wan reminded him, "Don't worry, I already have a strategy." Ling Xiao smiled. Since he had already guessed this would happen, he naturally had a countermeasure. "Everyone, enter the arena." The third elder said loudly, "Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh." 30 figures instantly stepped onto the wasteland. There is only one rule, and that is to eliminate your opponents. You can choose to form an alliance, or you can choose to avoid battle. In short, in this wasteland, you can choose any method you can think of to stay until the end. Do you all understand? Understood. 30 people shouted in unison on the wasteland. Good. Since you all understand, this old man will not waste any more time. The final battle of the substitute upper position selection begins. As soon as the third elder's voice fell, there was no chaotic situation on the battlefield. Of the 30 people, 29 of them had communicated with each other in advance. Their consensus was that Ling Xiao should be eliminated first, and then each of them would get the last 10 spots based on their own abilities. Ling Xiao was surrounded by these 29 people, but his face revealed an indifferent smile. "What, you can't wait anymore?" Ling Xiao smiled as he looked at Yin Shan. Among them, Yin Shan's hostility toward him was naturally the greatest. "Humph, you can only blame yourself for being too showy and disrespecting the 3 elders. So today, you should just obediently fall down." Yin Shan snorted coldly. "Hee hee, didn't you say you wanted to fight me one-on-one? Why don't you keep your word now?" Ling Xiao asked with a smile. "Are you trying to goad me? Unfortunately, I won't be fooled. There's no need for me to deal with someone like you. Once you defeat them, I'll fight you fair and square." Yin Shan smiled and sat down with the Red Witch and a few other stronger warriors to chat and drink tea. "Isn't this too unfair?" Chen Wan frowned and looked at Qin Bai. "It doesn't matter whether it's fair or not. You have to know that often, Outstanding geniuses have the most advantage when they're fighting against many. If Ling Xiao can't solve today's problem, then he'll stop here. Qin Bai shook his head. He was looking forward to what Ling Xiao would do next. Facing so many opponents, did Ling Xiao really have a way to deal with them? To be honest, he wasn't sure. However, when he thought about how Ling Xiao could kill the 8th prince, Jihyun of Silla, General Purple Thunder, and other experts, and how he could turn the tables against the peerless genius Qin Sangxiong, he was shocked. He shouldn't be at his wits' end, right? The audience was also very curious about what Ling Xiao would do. In their opinion, no matter what Ling Xiao did, he would probably be eliminated as soon as possible. However, if it ended like that, it would be too boring. If he's the real Ling Xiao, he won't lose. That's right, the real Ling Xiao is an undefeated young hero. His battle with Liu Yan didn't completely prove his strength. Today is the real test for him. In the midst of the discussion, Ling Xiao suddenly stretched his arms and legs, then turned to the disciples surrounding him and said, "If you didn't provoke me, you could have gone down a bit later." It's said that in this selection, if you're eliminated a bit later, you can get more rewards. Even if you can't enter the demonic book hall, you can still get other rewards. Unfortunately, I'm afraid you won't get them. As he spoke, his body began to change. In the blink of an eye, he had turned into a purple thunder bull warrior. The ferocious and terrifying armor covered his entire body, revealing only his 2 sharp eyes. "Don't be afraid of him, it's just a bluff. Go!" Someone in the crowd shouted, and nearly 20 people rushed at Ling Xiao at the same time. They didn't have any brilliant strategy, and were fighting for themselves. This made Ling Xiao feel even more ridiculous. He spat out 4 words. "Heavenly Thunder Divine Guards!" The moment the voice sounded, 32 Heavenly Thunder Divine Guards appeared around him at the same time. And one of the leaders actually had the same fighting strength as him. Perhaps other than not having the magic treasure in his hands, they were on par with him in all other aspects. These were the transformative Heavenly Thunder Divine Guards, and also the benefits that Ling Xiao obtained after the battle with Qin Sangxiong. It was just that he hadn't used it yet. Today it happened to be useful. Under the Purple Thunder Bull form, the Heavenly Thunder Divine Guard's fighting strength would be stronger, which was the reason why he transformed. What's going on? As Ling Xiao released the Heavenly Thunder Divine Guards on the rostrum, the 3 elders were so shocked that they stood up. Qin Bai was even more ecstatic. Freak! A real world-shocking freak. Except for the senior martial artist who created the Heavenly Thunder Divine Guards, no one has ever been able to cultivate this set of martial arts to the transformative realm. He actually did it. This is simply incredible. Once again, Qin Bai gave himself full marks for his choice. Fortunately, he had made up his mind. Otherwise, where could he find such a good disciple? The moment the 32 Heavenly Thunder Divine Guards appeared, the situation on the field had completely changed. Among the 32 Heavenly Thunder Divine Guards, one of them had the same fighting strength as Ling Xiao. The other 31 had 90% of his fighting strength. Among these people, except for 7 or 8 of them, the rest were not as powerful as his Heavenly Thunder Divine Guards. On the battlefield, screams sounded again and again. Those martial artists who rushed at Ling Xiao were knocked out of the wilderness one by one. They wouldn't die. After all, the rules of the competition required them. But if they didn't lie in bed for a month or half a month, it was impossible for them to get up. Yin Shan and the Red Witch were dumbfounded when they saw this scene. Chapter 27-29. When Yin Shan, the Red Witch, and the others came back to their senses, they wanted to change their original plan and join the battle. There were only 8 people left on the field. One of them was Ling Xiao. The other 7 were the strongest among the middle disciples, including Yin Shan and the Red Witch. Among them, Yin Shan and the Red Witch were the strongest. It was almost impossible for Ling Xiao's Heavenly Thunder Guards to defeat them. However, Ling Xiao did not plan to do so. "You guys trap those 6 guys. I'll fight Yin Shan." Ling Xiao waved his hand. 32 heavenly thunder guards surrounded 6 of them. Only Shan was isolated. How about it, Shan? Didn't you desperately want to defeat me in front of everyone and make a fool of me? I'm giving you such a chance now. I'm afraid you won't dare. Ling Xiao could feel that his cultivation was on the verge of a breakthrough. Right now, he really needed to fight a powerful opponent like Shan. Humph! The Heavenly Thunder Divine Guard should be your strongest move. Don't think that you can do whatever you want with it. Today, I'll let you understand this completely. As he spoke, a cold wind whistled. Behind Shan, a continuous shadow of Mountain appeared. It was gloomy and majestic. In his hand, there was a huge mountain-splitting axe. The Mountain martial spirit and this immortal grade spiritual weapon mountain-splitting axe were a perfect match. A black gust of wind circled around the mountain-splitting axe like a poisonous dragon. Then, Shan roared and jumped up. The huge mountain-splitting axe carried the majestic aura of Mountain and smashed toward Ling Xiao. Boom! The huge axe was like a mountain, but it was blocked by a long sword that looked like it was carved out of white jade. However, this terrifying power smashed Ling Xiao's legs into the ground. Ling Xiao's arm began to tremble slightly. What a domineering power, but it's just right. Ling Xiao could feel that with this attack, the gate of cultivation had opened a crack. However, Shan did not have such a feeling. He didn't know why Ling Xiao wanted to fight him alone. After his attack was blocked, his expression was still gloomy and cold. With a flick of his arm, the huge mountain-splitting axe slid past the blade of the sword and chopped towards Ling Xiao's head. He was really good at seizing opportunities. At this moment, Ling Xiao's legs were stuck in the ground, and he couldn't move freely. It was impossible for him to escape with his movement skills, so he could only meet force with force. He believed that, in terms of strength, he could definitely suppress Ling Xiao. The giant axe, which was accompanied by a whistling chilly wind, made a strange hissing sound as it split the air. It was as if the elements in the air were directly split apart by this terrible giant axe, letting out a mournful cry. Ling Xiao naturally wouldn't underestimate a person whose cultivation was stronger than his and who had rich combat experience. Mountain was not Lu Yan. Although Ling Xiao looked down on this guy's character, he had to admit that this guy was very strong. At the very least, he was a very difficult opponent for him at this stage. The howling, ghost-like axe shadow rapidly enlarged in Ling Xiao's pitch-black pupils. Suddenly, the long sword in Ling Xiao's hand trembled. The white jade flying dragon sword in his hand seemed to turn into a flood dragon, stabbing out at a very strange angle. The sword, which was condensed with terrifying sword chi, directly and accurately pierced the huge mountain-splitting axe. They collided again. The terrifying roar shook many people's eardrums to the point of hurting. After blocking Shan's attack, Ling Xiao's body suddenly shot out from the ground. Along with the change of direction of the long sword in his hand, he delicately stabbed at Shan's throat. The long sword whistled, and the sword chi was sharp. The sound of the sonic boom was like the wailing of ghosts and howling of wolves. The sharp sword chi caused Shan to frown. He was obviously fighting in a big way, and the giant axe in his hand was not agile enough. Once Ling Xiao blocked and counterattacked, it would be very troublesome. He originally thought that he could continue to suppress Ling Xiao, and after a few moves, he would be able to defeat Ling Xiao. But now, it seemed that it would not be so easy. He did not know until they fought, but once they fought, he truly understood how terrifying Ling Xiao's strength was. At this moment, he had no choice but to dodge. The chilly wind whistled under his feet, and his body suddenly seemed to turn into a gust of ghostly wind. In an instant, he dodged Ling Xiao's sword tip and dodged 4 or 5 meters to the side. Not only was his speed fast, but his body movement was also very strange. I forgot to tell you, my Shan martial soul can not only give me terrifying strength, but it can also give me ghostly abilities. You can even let me obtain a movement technique that is as ethereal as a ghost. No matter which aspect it is, you can't compare to me. After dodging Ling Xiao's sword, Yin Shan sneered, looking very proud. Idiot, you're only at the middle stage of the 11th level of the Yin Yang realm, and you still want to dodge my attack. I really don't know what you're so proud of. Ling Xiao looked at Yin Shan with disdain. No wonder the cult leader is unwilling to accept you as a disciple. Even I don't like you, let alone the cult leader. Damn it! How dare you humiliate me like this? Good, good. I wanted to give you a chance to show off, but now it seems that there's no need for that. I'll completely defeat you in front of the left, right, and middle disciples of the dragon cult, as well as many higher-ups. I'll make sure that your stinky mouth will never be able to speak again. Yin Shan held the huge mountain-splitting axe in his hand with one hand and pointed it at Ling Xiao as he roared furiously. I'm sorry, I really didn't see that you had that kind of ability. Ling Xiao said indifferently, your martial soul is indeed very powerful, but unfortunately, you didn't truly unleash its power. Bullshit! You have no right to talk about my martial soul. Yin Shan roared and grabbed the axe with both hands. Then his body began to spin on the spot. As his body spun faster and faster, the huge mountain-splitting axe actually formed an arc of terrifyingly sharp air blade around his body. The whistling wind and ferocious force were constantly released, shattering all the surrounding weeds. Even the boulders on the ground were easily destroyed. What a violent power! And it seems that the faster the spinning speed, the greater the power. Ling Xiao frowned. At this moment, in his eyes, Yin Shan's entire body seemed to have turned into a crazy demonic wind that could destroy everything. Around his body, a terrifying black tornado was constantly forming. It seems that this guy should be completely enraged. This move should belong to the first level of the immortal grade martial skill, and it has already reached the transformation realm. This kid is indeed a genius. While analyzing his opponent's attack, Ling Xiao was not idle either. Although meeting force with force was the stupidest way to attack, but Ling Xiao still planned to do so, because Yin Shan's powerful attack was just the right opportunity for him. As long as he met force with force, his cultivation might break through in that instant. Chapter 2730. Behind Ling Xiao, a black figure gradually took shape. That figure was like a demon, with a cold and cruel appearance. The sword in his hand also became more and more fierce as the figure took shape. Ling Xiao, today I will tell you who is qualified to be the sect master's last disciple, who is the true genius. The terrifying howling of the cold wind became louder and louder. The speed of Yin Mountain's rotation seemed to have reached a certain limit. Die. His voice was filled with incomparable malice and coldness. Yin Shan had already discussed with the first sect elder. Today, he would take Ling Xiao's life in this battle. Even if the sect master investigated later, he would definitely not kill him for a dead person. After all, the sect master was interested in Ling Xiao's talent, not that person. If Ling Xiao was killed by him, it proved that Ling Xiao was inferior to him. Then, what reason would the sect master have to avenge Ling Xiao? Yin Mountain's deadly storm. Yin Shan let out a cold shout. As his body rapidly spun towards Ling Xiao, the huge and terrifying tornado had almost occupied an area of dozens of meters in diameter. Wherever it passed, not a single blade of grass grew, and the ground was also cut into a mess. Then, people saw the terrifying storm completely enveloping Ling Xiao. Smoke and dust filled the sky, and the wind whistled. No one could see what was happening clearly. The terrifying storm had created a huge pit that was 3 to 4 meters deep on the ground. Most of the onlookers swallowed a mouthful of saliva. Such a terrifying attack, not to mention Ling Xiao. Even if a warrior with a cultivation stronger than Yin Shan was hit, he would probably be seriously injured, even if he did not die, right? People stared nervously at the gradually dissipating storm. They could not see any figure, and they could not even feel a person's aura. There was only a violent force roaring crazily. It was as if Ling Xiao had been turned into dust under this attack. Yin Mountain's rotation finally gradually stopped. The huge, mountain-splitting axe supported the ground, and a tired expression appeared on his face. Sweat dripped down from his forehead. It was obvious that this attack had consumed a great deal of his energy. However, he didn't care. As long as he could destroy Ling Xiao, he didn't care about anything else. His deadly tempest was his strongest move. He was at the first sky of immortal grade. In the past, he had used this move to kill a martial artist from the Chen Kingdom's royal family, who was at the 11th level of the Yin-Yang realm. Therefore, he was absolutely confident that even if Ling Xiao could challenge someone of a higher level, he would still be able to defeat him. However, his cultivation was only at the peak of the 10th level of the Yin-Yang realm. How could he survive this attack? Thinking of this, although he was tired, his face still showed an excited expression. Yin Mountain stopped rotating. The storm also quickly dissipated. Countless people turned their attention to the center of the storm. This was because they really wanted to know if the young hero Ling Xiao, who had recently risen to fame, was really that powerful. Could he really contend against a powerhouse like Yin Shan? Boom! The storm suddenly dispersed. It didn't seem to have dissipated naturally. Instead, it seemed to have been directly shattered by someone. A sword was raised high. It pointed to the sky. The sharp sword qi blocked all the storm outside. Just now, Ling Xiao used the first sky of immortal grade martial skill, Dark Sword Demon. However, it wasn't used to attack. It was used to defend. He succeeded. Not only did the Dark Sword Demon block Yin Shan's attack, but it also completely tore the terrifying storm apart. In the center of the storm, a figure with purple lightning flashing all over his body stood proudly with a faint sneer at the corner of his mouth. However, no one noticed the gate of hell that flashed in the sky. That was the moment the gate of hell opened. However, because of the storm, many people ignored it. That's right, Ling Xiao broke through again. This was all thanks to Yin Shan's fierce attack. If this attack wasn't powerful enough, Ling Xiao definitely wouldn't be able to break through. Now, his cultivation had basically recovered to the level he reached when he fought with Qin Sangxiong, the early stage of the 11th level of the Yin-Yang realm. With this cultivation, if he used all his trump cards, he could even defeat a martial artist at the peak of the 11th level. Of course, it would be troublesome to deal with a martial artist at the early stage of the 12th level of the hell. However, as long as he used the Butterfly Lady's Soul and the Bloody Rat Demon, he could still defeat them. However, Ling Xiao didn't want to use the Bloody Rat Demon so easily. The regression of his cultivation gave him a headache. This move was better left for when there was no other way. Seeing that Ling Xiao was safe and sound, other than his clothes being a little messy, there was no trace of injury. Yin Shan's eyes were filled with disbelief, and he had a feeling that Ling Xiao, who was standing in front of him at this moment, had become stronger than before. He couldn't even fight back. Is it fun? Ling Xiao raised his head slightly, looked at Yin Shan with a faint smile, and asked casually, "Fun?" This guy actually thought that the ultimate move that I painstakingly used was fun. Damn it. Yin Shan held the mountain-splitting axe tightly in his hand. His anger continued to condense in his body. However, at this moment, he didn't attack impulsively. This was because he had keenly discovered just how tyrannical Ling Xiao's strength was. You've had your fun. Now it's my turn. Ling Xiao had just broken through and wanted to find an opponent to test his skills. The feeling of having one's cultivation base restored was truly amazing. What did you say? Yin Shan didn't understand what Ling Xiao meant. Suddenly, in his eyes, the figure wrapped in purple lightning suddenly approached. Retreat. Yin Shan made a wise choice. He faced Ling Xiao and used the Yin wind to quickly retreat. However, no matter how wise his choice was, it couldn't change the fact that Ling Xiao's strength had far surpassed his at this moment. Ling Xiao, whose strength had increased, had also increased his speed. Although Yin Shan had already retreated in advance, he had only retreated less than 2 meters when he realized that the tip of Ling Xiao's sword had already touched his clothes. At that moment, he felt a chill that he had never felt before. He waved the huge mountain-splitting axe, wanting to block Ling Xiao's sword. "Don't be so afraid. I won't kill you. I also want to have some fun." Ling Xiao's cold voice sounded in Yin Shan's ears. It made him feel even more terrified. At this moment, he didn't want to continue fighting back. He put away the huge axe, and his body became more agile. With the wind under his feet, he turned his body again and quickly got away from Ling Xiao. Moreover, he suddenly dodged to the side. In the past, when he used this kind of special skill, even the red witch couldn't do anything to him. He didn't believe that Ling Xiao could keep up with him. However, this confidence only lasted for a moment. This was because he realized that he had moved a distance of 4 to 5 meters. Chapter 27:31. No matter how Yin Shan dodged, Ling Xiao's sword was always pressed against his clothes. Ling Xiao's face was still facing him. It was as if the two of them were moving at the same speed at the same time. His hair stood on end. This was the only feeling Yin Shan had at this moment. "You wanted to kill me just now, didn't you? Don't worry, I won't kill you, but I will torture you well." The corner of Ling Xiao's mouth curled into a cold smile. Then, the white jade flying dragon sword in his hand pierced out. The terrifying sword shadow stabbed at different parts of Yin Shan's body like a storm. Every sword strike drew blood, but every sword strike didn't seem to be fatal. Every sword stab would cause Yin Shan to let out a shrill scream. "Bastard! You can't humiliate me like this." Waves of stabbing pain came from all over his body. It made Yin Shan feel a humiliation that he had never felt before. He kept adjusting his body in an attempt to avoid Ling Xiao's sword qi, but it was useless. No matter what method he used, Ling Xiao followed him closely like a maggot, and every time he could stab him. What he didn't know was that, at this moment, in Ling Xiao's eyes, although he wasn't stationary, his speed was as slow as an ordinary person's. With such speed, he couldn't avoid any of Ling Xiao's attacks at all. All of Yin Mountain's dodging had been rendered useless. It was pointless. Yin Shan wanted to counterattack, but he didn't even have the chance to swing his heavy mountain-splitting axe. His hands and arms were already covered in sword marks. His 2 arms could barely move. At this moment, Ling Xiao was constantly adapting to his new cultivation level in the battle. Once he had fully adapted to it, Yin Mountain would be completely eliminated. In the eyes of everyone, Yin Shan, who was still majestic and domineering just now, but all of a sudden, he became a puppet that could only be attacked. The situation was simply miserable beyond compare. This was the most extreme change in the sky and the earth. As a result, many people still couldn't believe that what they saw was reality. They thought that they had some strange illusion. Is this true? The great Yin Mountain was actually beaten up so badly by Ling Xiao? Hee, hallucination. It must be a hallucination. Aya, why is it so painful? Could it be real? I don't want to be enemies with this guy. Zheng Quan and Lu Su trembled. Seeing Ling Xiao today, they suddenly felt that they were really too lucky. Because his strength was not very good, he did not choose to continue to be enemies with Ling Xiao. Otherwise, they would have been the ones being abused today. Good lad, as expected of this seat's disciple. This ferocity, this strength, these are all top-notch talents. Qin Bai did not expect that Ling Xiao's cultivation would recover so quickly. It had only been 5 days, but he had already recovered to his former strength. It seemed that Ling Xiao's cultivation method was different from that of ordinary people. Time to end this. Now, the opponents on the field could no longer affect Ling Xiao's cultivation in the slightest. Continuing to fight would only be a waste of time. Therefore, a ruthless look flashed in Ling Xiao's eyes. The last sword cut off Yin Mountain's right arm, then kicked Yin Mountain out of the field. "This is the price you have to pay for trying to kill me just now. I won't kill you, but don't think about recovering your arm." Soul stealing. Every organ and every tissue in the human body was controlled by a soul. Once the soul was stolen, it was basically impossible to grow it again. If the soul was not stolen, Mountain's arm might grow back in a few days. That would be too boring. This guy is so ruthless. The first elder's face revealed an angry expression. If he's not ruthless, how can he be a disciple of the dragon cult? Chun Bai sneered. Speaking of ruthlessness, Mountain seems to have wanted to kill Ling Xiao just now. Ling Xiao is already very benevolent not to kill him. The first elder's face was ugly, but he had to admit that Chun Bai was right. He could not find a reason for Ling Xiao to break the rules. At this time, Ling Xiao also looked at the remaining opponents on the field. He recalled all the Heavenly Thunder Guards. He looked at the remaining 3 people, because before he defeated Mountain, 3 people were killed by the Heavenly Thunder Guards. As for the Heavenly Thunder Divine Guards, only 5 of them were left. Leave the field on your own. Don't make me attack. Ling Xiao said lightly. If it was before, he would still treat the Red Witch as a strong opponent. But after his cultivation breakthrough, the Red Witch was just an ordinary opponent in his eyes. That's impossible, one of them said sternly. However, before he finished speaking, a sword light sent him out of the battlefield. Not only that, but this sword light also made him taste the price of disobedience. Although it was not as bad as Mountain, he would have to rest in bed for at least a month or 2. You're too overbearing, another person said. What greeted him was the same as the previous person. That's right, I'm overbearing. So what? When you tried to join forces to fight me just now, why didn't you think about whether I could take it? Now you think I'm overbearing? That's ridiculous. You're the only one left, Red Witch. Admit defeat or fight. Ling Xiao looked at the Red Witch indifferently and asked, Since you know that I'm the Red Witch, you should know that it's impossible for me to surrender. And I won't be defeated by you as easily as they were. Pfft. The Red Witch still did not finish her words. Although she was proud and discovered Ling Xiao's attack, she was still inevitably sent out of the field by Ling Xiao's sword. So long-winded. Only Ling Xiao was left in the field. He put away the white jade flying dragon sword and took a deep breath. Then he looked at the referee's seat and said, This boring battle is over, right? To him, apart from the battle with Mountain that was a little interesting, the other battles didn't have much meaning at all. So he felt very bored. He wanted to end it as soon as possible. Next, he would head to the demonic book hall to obtain the demonic dragon's phantom. He believed that after obtaining that movement skill, his strength would improve further. Now he was first in the upper disciple substitute. Next, he would become a real upper disciple. Ling Xiao, you'd better not be too arrogant. You should know that there's always someone better than you. If you're too arrogant, you'll be at a disadvantage one day. The third sect elder saw that all of his people were eliminated by Ling Xiao alone, so he was naturally unhappy. He wanted to use a chicken feather as an arrow to warn Ling Xiao. However, he was simply asking for humiliation. Arrogant? When your disciples humiliated my master's adopted son and daughter, did you think of being arrogant? According to what you said, they just suffered retribution. Ling Xiao smiled coldly and said, And I'm really sorry. I, Ling Xiao, was born with this kind of personality. Chapter 2732. Hearing Ling Xiao's provocation, the third sect elder's expression turned ugly. If he accepted the challenge, he would be bullying the weak. Even if he won, it would be dishonorable. If he lost, it would be even more troublesome. But if he didn't accept the challenge, would he really allow this brat to be so arrogant? All right. Third sect elder, there will be plenty of opportunities to deal with him. Isn't he going to the demonic book hall next? At this moment, the first sect elder spoke. There are too many people here, and it would be too ugly to lose. However, if they were in the demonic book hall, where there were fewer people, it wouldn't matter if they lost. I'll listen to Big Sister. The third sect elder took a deep breath, and then announced loudly, Ling Xiao, the Red Witch, and the other 8 people have obtained the qualifications to be promoted. Among them, Ling Xiao can go to the demonic book hall. As soon as he finished speaking, the wasteland resounded with thunderous cheers. Amidst the thunderous sound, the entire wasteland rumbled as if an earthquake had occurred. Countless people began to shout, looking at the proud youth in the wasteland. Ling Xiao had used his own strength to prove that he was worthy of this name. It also proved who was the strongest among the middle disciples. It also proved that Ling Xiao was absolutely qualified to become Qinbai's last disciple. Originally, Qinbai would have to spend some time to resolve the unwillingness in the hearts of the dragon cult disciples. However, Ling Xiao's victory this time made everything logical. The reason why things could go so smoothly was because of his strength. In this mystic world where martial arts were respected, only strength could be the most convincing thing. Hearing the frenzied cheers and looking at Ling Xiao standing there, who else but him could do it? Yin Shan and the Red Witch's expressions were very ugly. At this moment, Yin Shan's right arm was already crippled. The anger in his heart was surging and burning. He wanted revenge. He wanted revenge no matter what. Ling Xiao, just you wait. One day, I will let you know that I, Yin Shan, am definitely not easy to bully. I will make you pay the price in blood. These words were said in his heart, but he suddenly noticed Ling Xiao's cold gaze looking over. He understood that gaze. It was a warning, but he wasn't afraid. He couldn't be afraid. The physical pain from this failure was secondary. The psychological blow was the most serious ever since he came to the dragon cult, apart from not being accepted as a last disciple by sect leader Qinbai. As for everything else, it was completely smooth sailing. Among all the middle disciples, he was definitely one of the best, an influential figure. No matter where he went, he would attract envious and worshipful gazes. But today he had been completely destroyed by Ling Xiao's unreasonable strength. The pride of the past also fell apart at this moment. Perhaps from today onwards, Yin Mountain would no longer be able to raise his head among the middle disciples. His past worship would become ridicule. People were people. For someone as prideful as him, this was simply unacceptable. He had thought about suicide, but he was unwilling. How could he die like this? Before he died, he must let Ling Xiao taste the same pain. Definitely. In fact, the more proud a person was, the more they were regarded as a genius, the more fragile they were. The higher they climbed, the worse they fell. This was the kind of person who would fall. Once they failed, they would have very extreme thoughts. They couldn't bear the huge difference. They would either be unable to recover from the setback or become mentally twisted. Yin Shan was the latter. Compared to him, the Red Witch's behavior was a little strange. His originally unsightly expression instantly turned bright red. There was a fiery glow in his eyes. It was as hot as her martial soul. Ling Xiao, since you defeated me, you have to take responsibility. The Red Witch was that kind of woman. She had an attribute called cheap. The stronger a man was, the more she liked him. This time, she was mercilessly defeated by Ling Xiao. Not only did she not hate Ling Xiao at all, but she also fell madly in love with Ling Xiao. Of course, at this time, Ling Xiao didn't have time to care about what those two people were thinking. He only knew that now that he had become the first candidate disciple, he was qualified to enter the demonic book hall and obtain the demonic dragon's phantom. Walking out of the field, he directly found Qinbai. Master, now I'm qualified to go to the demonic book hall. Ling Xiao didn't have time to rest because he knew that he had to hurry. On the road of martial arts, if you didn't advance, you would fall behind. In the distant capital of the Qin kingdom, there was a young man who was not inferior to him and was also working hard. He was working hard to kill him. How could he dare to slack off? Okay, let's get that thing first, in case there are more problems. Qinbai nodded and then took Ling Xiao to the demonic book hall. When the three elders saw this, they didn't care about the injured Yin Shan. They casually asked people to send Yin Shan to the medical hall and then went to the demonic book hall. No matter what, they had to stop Ling Xiao from obtaining any supreme martial arts. The current Ling Xiao was already strong enough. If he were to obtain that supreme martial art, how would they be able to suppress him? Ling Xiao obviously didn't understand the three elders' thoughts. He followed Qin Bai and soon arrived in front of a heavily guarded hall. The demonic book hall was filled with a strange and eerie aura. As expected of the dragon cult's library, it indeed smelled like a demon. The number of guards in the demonic book hall was probably the highest after the cult leader's hall, and the quality was also very high. The strongest guard leader here had reached the late stage of the 11th level of hell of the Yin-Yang realm. The other leaders were also at the early or middle stage of the 11th level of hell. Even the ordinary guards were at the 10th level of hell. They were probably the backbone of the dragon cult's disciples. From this, it could be seen how important this place was. I won't introduce the demonic book hall. Since you're a reincarnation realm martial artist, you naturally know what's in the sect's library. Although the names are different, each sect's library is more or less the same. The only difference is the strength of the martial arts and the number of them. Our dragon cult's demonic book hall has 100,000 martial arts, from the early gold grade to the third heaven of the immortal grade. Most of these martial arts were snatched from outside, so it's not too much to call us the dragon cult. Qin Bai was a carefree person. Ordinary people wouldn't admit that they were demons, but he didn't care. The wars between countries are also plundering. If this is a demon, then this world has probably been taken over by demons. Ling Xiao said lightly, "Kid, you're really to my liking. Ha ha ha, let's go. I'll take you in. The martial arts you want are in the deepest part of the demonic book hall." Qin Bai laughed and walked into the demonic book hall. Chapter 27:33. Ling Xiao was Qin Bai's last disciple and the first place of the substitute for the upper position. The guards of the demonic book hall would not stop him. However, trouble was always hard to guard against. Just as the two of them were about to step into the demonic book hall, a voice came from behind. "Leader, please wait." The voice was gentle and seductive. Without looking, he knew it was the middle-aged first elder. Ling Xiao frowned. He had already obtained the first place of the substitute for the upper position. He had the opportunity to enter the demonic book hall and obtain the supreme martial arts technique. What else did the first elder want? What's more, all three elders were here. This bunch of fellows really didn't give him a good time. The three of us pay our respects to the leader. Although the three elders had long regarded Qin Bai as an opponent, they still had to be polite on the surface. Before they completely fell out with Qin Bai, they still had to pretend to be subservient. "What are the three of you doing here? Do you have something important to report?" Qin Bai stared at the three elders with an unpleasant expression. If Ling Xiao could guess it, he could naturally guess it as well. The appearance of these three old guys meant that nothing good was going to happen. "Sect leader, we are here for the Magic Dragon's phantom movement technique." The first elder said, What do you mean? Are you not going to give the demonic dragon's phantom to Ling Xiao?" Qin Bai's voice was filled with a hint of coldness. Ling Xiao had already obtained the first place of the substitute for the upper position in front of so many people. If these three old guys still dared to stop him, he would not be polite. Although they could already hear the dissatisfaction in Qin Bai's voice, the first elder still braced himself and said, "Leader, the rules cannot be abolished. According to the rules of our dragon cult, even if you are the first place of the substitute for the upper position, to obtain the demonic dragon's phantom, you have to display the combat power of the advanced stage of the Yin-Yang first transformation state." Ling Xiao's combat power was obviously not enough. I would like to suggest that Ling Xiao give up the demonic dragon's phantom for the time being. Anyway, there are many second sky of immortal grade martial arts in our demonic book hall. He can choose any of them. When your disciple became the number one substitute for the upper position, you didn't mention such a rule. Do you know the consequences of making things difficult for me? Qin Bai snorted coldly. Apparently, he was already a little angry. Normally, I don't want to argue with you, but don't go overboard. Do you really think I'm an idiot? Your subordinates dare not. The first elder, second elder, and third elder all knelt on the ground. If you don't dare, then scram! Chen Bai shouted sternly. Your subordinates' loyalty to the dragon cult can be proven by the heavens and earth. It wasn't aimed at Ling Xiao, but the rules couldn't be broken. Sect Master, you can wait until his combat strength reaches the required level before imparting the supreme martial art to him. We naturally won't stop you. The three elders were obviously going to remonstrate with death, just like how they didn't want to completely fall out with Chen Bai. Chen Bai didn't want to completely fall out with them either. The dragon cult still needed to coexist harmoniously among the three factions. Otherwise, the dragon cult would probably fall apart in an instant. The three elders saw this point, which was why they dared to remonstrate with death. They were sure that Chen Bai wouldn't dare to kill them. Sect Master, please think of the dragon cult's big picture and defend the dragon cult's fairness and justice. At this moment, a lot of people suddenly rushed over. These people were the three elders' subordinates or disciples. There were actually more than 1,000 people. They all knelt there, seemingly respectful to Chen Bai, but in fact they were threatening him. Good, very good. Are you trying to force me? Chen Bai's face was extremely gloomy and ugly. His murderous aura was boiling in his body, ready to explode at any time. What if I insist on imparting the demonic dragon's phantom to Ling Xiao today? Chen Bai's voice was full of murderous intent. The dragon cult was built by him. Although his control was not as strong as it used to be, he was still the sect master. However, he was still the sect master after all. The actions of these people truly infuriated him, and he wasn't afraid of anyone. His strength was enough to take on the three elders and 2 vice sect masters. This was the reason why he could do whatever he wanted. If sect master insists, we won't dare to do anything. But has sect master thought about it? If you break the rules, then in the future, can we also freely impart the supreme martial art to our disciples? If that's the case, what's the use of the demonic Codex Hall's rules? In any case, the first sect elder had decided to confront Chen Bai today. Of course, she didn't dare to do anything, because she knew that she wasn't Chen Bai's opponent, but righteousness was on her side. If Chen Bai insisted on messing around, then even if Ling Xiao obtained the demonic dragon's phantom, the final winner would still be them, because Chen Bai would completely lose the hearts of the people. At that time, Chen Bai wouldn't be far from being impeached as the sect master. Ling Xiao stood at the side and watched these people's performance coldly, finding it very funny. Absolute loyalty was written all over their faces. Everyone said that the big picture was more important, as if they were all doing it for the sake of the dragon cult. However, only they themselves knew what was going on in their minds. Sure enough, where there were people, there would be no lack of flies and dogs. Chen Bai frowned. Although he knew that the other party was unreasonable, he was in a dilemma. If he left, his authority as the sect master would only weaken. If he forced his way in, his authority as the sect master would also seriously decline, and the sect would probably not accept him. He was indeed very strong. But if all the sect members united to impeach him, he wouldn't be able to turn the tide. Perhaps because he wanted to strike while the iron was hot, the second elder changed his usual smiling face and started to cry. Sect master, you must think twice. If you are so biased just because Ling Xiao is your direct disciple, then the foundation that you worked so hard to build will be destroyed in a day. You are the founder of the dragon cult, but the rules of the dragon cult were also set by you. You once said that no matter who it was, they must abide by the rules, including you. You have done very well in the past, and the sect members have a lot of respect for you. But are you going to break your promise and slap yourself for a mere Ling Xiao? Aren't you afraid that the sect members who worship and respect you will be disappointed? His ultimate performance attracted the approval of many people. More and more people gathered here, and all of them knelt down. Chen Bai's face had turned ashen. In terms of ability to fan the flames, he really couldn't compare to these three elders. Chun Bai took a deep breath. He decided to do as he pleased. Chapter 27:34. In Chen Bai's heart, Ling Xiao was indispensable. As long as Ling Xiao grew up, then he, Chen Bai, would not regret it. Even if the dragon cult was disbanded, because of this, he could still rebuild it. Threatening me? I won't let you succeed. You don't want to get up? Fine, then kneel here. Kneel for as long as you want. After understanding the logic behind it, Chen Bai sneered. He was the leader of the dragon cult and the founder of the dragon cult. How could he be threatened by this group of people? Hearing Chen Bai's words, the three elders were stunned. They really didn't expect that Chen Bai would go to this extent for Ling Xiao. But at the same time they were also ecstatic. After this, Chen Bai would definitely be finished. There was no doubt about this. Chen Bai, this guy, had made the most foolish decision. At this time, Ling Xiao was somewhat moved by Chen Bai's decision. But he couldn't let Chen Bai do this. He didn't want the dragon cult that Chen Bai had painstakingly built to be destroyed because of him. The key was that he couldn't let these despicable people have their way. He stood up and said to Chen Bai with a smile, "Master, it's better to leave this matter to your disciple." "You?" Chen Bai was stunned for a moment, then nodded. "All right, since you have this intention, I'll let you deal with this matter." "Thank you, Master." Ling Xiao cupped his hands, then looked at the kneeling crowd and said coldly, "Do you know what you're doing?" Everyone was stunned for a moment, not understanding Ling Xiao's meaning. Threatening the leader is a capital offense in the dragon cult. My Shizhuan is magnanimous and benevolent. For the sake of the dragon cult, he is unwilling to bicker with you. That's why you rascals think you can do whatever you want. Ling Xiao said coldly, "If I were the cult master, all of you would have to die. If they didn't even care about the dignity of the sect leader, then they could rebel at any time. What's the point of having such a traitor? Ling Xiao, don't slander us. We didn't coerce the cult leader. We were just describing the pros and cons. The sect leader was bewitched by a villain like you. That's why he did something that went against the sect's rules." The first elder furrowed his brows and shouted. She couldn't let Ling Xiao continue. This brat's mouth was too sharp, just like a knife. If he continued talking, those who were kneeling down with them would probably leave in fear. Breaking the rules? Well said. Then let me ask the first sect elder, what exactly did the sect leader violate? Ling Xiao stared at the first sect elder and asked, "Don't you understand? Your combat strength can't even reach the late stage of the 11th level of Hell of the Yin-Yang transformation. Yet the cult leader insisted on letting you obtain the demonic dragon's phantom. This is a violation of the sect's rules." The second sect elder rushed to shout, "Ridiculous! You dare to question the cult leader's actions based on your own conjectures? How audacious! Who gave you the courage? Are you trying to rebel?" Ling Xiao suddenly said coldly, "You said that my combat strength isn't up to par. What's the basis for that? Just based on the touch of your lips, do you think you can speak as you please? Do you know that slandering the cult leader is a capital offense? You're slandering us." The third sect elder roared. They realized that Ling Xiao had only said a few words, and they who were righteous and reasonable had become unreasonable, and they had even committed a capital offense. The most important point was whether Ling Xiao had the combat strength of the late stage of the 11th level of Hell of the Yin-Yang transformation. If he did, then everything Ling Xiao said would become the truth. If he didn't, then they had nothing to fear. It seems that the three sect elders seem to understand what I mean. Ling Xiao smiled and pointed at the third sect elder. He should be a martial artist at the late stage of the 11th level of Hell of the Yin-Yang transformation. In terms of combat strength, I'm afraid he's stronger than ordinary martial artists at this level. Then this matter is simple. I wonder if the three sect elders dare to make a bet with me? Boy, what qualifications do you have to make a bet with us? The first sect elder shouted sternly. Why isn't he qualified? What Ling Xiao said today represents my opinion. Chen Bai realized that in terms of eloquence, Ling Xiao could be his master. Therefore, he decided to let Ling Xiao handle this matter. Sect leader. The first sect elder gritted his teeth. Since the sect leader said so, then he naturally has the qualifications. What kind of bet do you want to make? It's very simple. I will fight with the third sect elder. If I lose, I will leave the dragon cult and never step foot in here again. If the third sect elder loses, it will prove that you are guilty of framing the sect leader. At that time, everyone kneeling here will die. Ling Xiao said coldly. This was his personality. If he was Chen Bai, he would never let go of someone who dared to defy his authority because of the so-called big picture. Because such a person would sooner or later be a disaster if left alive. You're crazy. Everyone here is a meritorious member of the dragon cult. The first sect elder said sternly. Scared? Fine, then don't compete. But if anyone dares to say that the sect leader is biased in the future, that will be a capital offense. Ling Xiao looked at the first sect elder with disdain, regardless of whether the other party competed or not. Today was his and Chen Bai's victory. If they competed, he was confident that he could defeat the third sect elder. Then these people would never be able to wash away their crimes. As for whether Chen Bai would kill them later, that would depend on Chen Bai himself. If he killed them, it would weaken the power of the 3 sect elders and the 2 vice sect leaders. If he didn't kill them, it would increase his prestige as the sect leader. Both were benefits. If the other party didn't compete, then today's matter would become that the 3 sect elders were being unreasonable and had ulterior motives. At that time, the sect leader wouldn't suffer any losses, and Ling Xiao would be able to smoothly obtain the martial arts he wanted. On the other hand, the 3 sect elders would lose their prestige. Therefore, no matter what, this game was completely reversed. Of course, the key problem was that other than him, no one else believed that he could defeat the third sect elder. Therefore, after weighing the pros and cons, the 3 sect elders made the most reasonable choice. Kid, you're the one who said it. If you can't defeat my third brother, then get out of the dragon cult. The first sect elder looked coldly at Ling Xiao and said, Now, all the problems were back to square one. The root of all this was the problem of Ling Xiao's combat strength. Of course. Ling Xiao said calmly, Although I don't know where you get your confidence and calmness, you're going to lose today. The third sect elder had been stopped by the first sect elder at the preliminaries, so he couldn't fight with Ling Xiao, but he was very unhappy. In his opinion, Ling Xiao was just a kid. What was there to be afraid of? Chapter 27:35. The third elder believed that as long as he made a move, Ling Xiao would definitely lose. However, as a sect elder, bullying the weak would definitely make him a laughingstock. Now, the first elder had agreed to this battle, and Chen Bai had no choice but to agree. Therefore, this battle was unavoidable. He suddenly felt a little excited. No one knows the result until we fight. Ling Xiao said lightly, Sect Master, let's be frank. The one who provoked me is your disciple. If I win, you can't say that I'm bullying the weak. The third elder looked at Chen Bai and said, I've said it before. What Ling Xiao said today represents what I mean. Chen Bai said lightly. He was going all out now, betting on Ling Xiao. If Ling Xiao lost, he would resign from his position as the dragon cult's leader and focus on guiding Ling Xiao's cultivation. In his eyes, anyway, Ling Xiao alone was comparable to the entire dragon cult. If he wanted to successfully take revenge on the Chen Kingdom's royal family, he had to rely on Ling Xiao. Well, since the sect master said so, I'm relieved. The third elder laughed in his heart. Ling Xiao dared to provoke him, so it was reasonable for him to kill him by accident. From today onwards, Ling Xiao would no longer exist in this world. What an idiotic smile. Are you proud? Ling Xiao saw the smug smile on the third elder's face and couldn't help but say lightly. As he spoke, he had already unsheathed his long sword. However, this time he didn't use the white jade flying dragon sword, but the blood thunder imperial sword. The third elder was very strong. He couldn't let his guard down. When he killed General Purple Thunder, he used the sanguinary rat move. But today, with the blood thunder imperial sword, he didn't want to use that move anymore. The after effects were too severe. As the blood thunder Empyrean sword came out of its shell, an invisible sword aura instantly burst out. This blood-red long sword was actually making clanging sounds, as if it was eager to drink blood. The blood thunder imperial sword is indeed a good sword. It's a pity that it's wasted in your hands. The third sect elder said coldly. At the same time, a powerful aura burst out. He did not intend to hold back. The strength of a rank 1 Enyang Realm's 11th level of hell was fully unleashed. After all, he was only facing an ignorant child, a youngster that he looked down on. If the battle went on for too long, even if he won in the end, he would probably be ridiculed by others. Therefore, he wanted to end the battle quickly. Are you going to make a move? The people kneeling on the ground all stood up to make room for Ling Xiao and the third Grand Elder. They were still very interested in this battle. After all, one of them was a famous young hero, the #1 villain on the evilest list. The other was the third elder of the dragon cult, the infamous great devil of the state of Qin. The battle between the two was quite dramatic. Of course, more importantly, this battle was related to their life and death. They could not ignore it. The third Grand Elder looked at Ling Xiao contemptuously and said, "Kid, you're lucky to be defeated by me. You won't feel ashamed if word gets out. You talk too much. Let's do it." Ling Xiao naturally would not underestimate the third Grand Elder. However, he would not lose to him in terms of aura. When the blood thunder imperial sword was unsheathed, he entered the tyrant blood demonic dragon martial soul transformation state. Under this beast soul transformation, the power of the blood thunder imperial sword would be even more vivid. Since you're so eager to make a fool of yourself, I'll fulfill your wish. What the third Grand Elder did not say was that Ling Xiao's death was imminent. Suddenly, a weapon appeared in his hand. It was a judge's pen made of cold iron. This weapon was only a divine spiritual weapon, comparable to Ling Xiao's 8 immortal sword, but not as good as the blood thunder imperial sword. However, he did not care. His cultivation was much higher than Ling Xiao's. In addition, he had rich combat experience and superb martial arts techniques. He was not afraid of Ling Xiao at all. No matter how strong a weapon was, it would not be able to unleash its full power in the hands of a weak person. Judge's court, I sentence you to death. Kill. Following the third Grand Elder's cold shout, the judge's pen pointed in the void, and then a strange death word appeared in the void. Then the third Grand Elder pointed the judge's pen again, and the word blasted toward Ling Xiao. What kind of strange martial arts is this? Ling Xiao had never seen such an attack before. To be honest, he was a little caught off guard. However, he quickly regained his composure. Although the martial arts in the world were complicated, they were still the same after all. Although the opponent's attack was strange, it would only be effective when it hit someone. Thinking of this, he shook the blood thunder imperial sword in his hand. Then, a blood-red ripple broke through the air. This move was not strong. It was only a top-tier jade martial arts technique, the Ghost Emperor Battle. Ling Xiao's purpose was to test the power of the third Grand Elder's attack. Uft! When the blood-red sword Qi touched the death word, it exploded instantly, as if it had encountered an extremely terrifying explosion. How strange! This death word contains such a terrifying power of death and the power of the underworld. The third Grand Elder is really something. Ling Xiao's body flashed and instantly turned into several wolf shadows, darting in all directions and then merging into one. The moment he retreated, the death word exploded on the ground where he was standing. He clearly saw that the ground had turned black. It was the black color of decay. It was as if it had been corroded by something. It's not poison. It's a special kind of willpower, the power of death from the underworld. It can kill anything, including sword chi, earth, and of course, human bodies. Ling Xiao stood more than 10 meters away from the third Grand Elder. He was vigilant and carefully analyzed with the Tai Chi eye. Know yourself and know your enemy, and you will never be defeated. The third Grand Elder's attack surprised him. Because he had never seen it before, it was difficult for him to deal with. Oh, not bad. You actually managed to dodge this old man's attack. But can you dodge my next attack? The third Grand Elder sneered and then pointed his judge pen more than 10 times. More than 10 death. Words flew out at the same time and attacked Ling Xiao, almost sealing off all of Ling Xiao's escape routes. If I can't dodge it completely, I'll just counterattack. Dark Shadow Martial Art. Dark Shadow, Sword Demon. Ling Xiao was not the kind of person who only knew how to defend and not counterattack. He knew very well that no matter how strong one's defense was, as time passed, mistakes would inevitably occur. So the best way was to counterattack after defending, so that the enemy would not be able to act according to his own rhythm. The sword martial spirit behind him bloomed with a bright red light. The tyrannical blood demon dragon on Ling Xiao's back flapped its blood-red wings, and in an instant his speed increased dramatically. Chapter 2736. The originally pitch-black sword demon had now turned blood-red. As the Blood Thunder Emperor sword merged with the Blood Thunder, it charged toward the third elder. Boom! The sword demon exploded. The blood-red sword light and the death word perished together. Haha, you're just a kid. Too inexperienced. Amidst his laughter, the third elder had already arrived above Ling Xiao's head. His speed was not inferior to Ling Xiao's at all. In fact, it seemed that he was even faster. Kill! The judge's brush pointed again and pierced toward Ling Xiao's head from above. With this stroke, dozens of death words instantly appeared in the void. The violent power of death was as if the god of the underworld had personally descended. Not to mention Ling Xiao. Even a warrior at the peak of the 11th level of hell would not be able to get away with it. Facing such an attack, it was almost impossible to not be at a disadvantage. Unfortunately, although Ling Xiao's cultivation was not at the peak of the 11th level of hell, but he was Ling Xiao, the one and only Ling Xiao. His combat skills were stronger than anyone else's, and his calculations in battle could be said to be flawless. He could make himself without any weaknesses. No matter what kind of attack he faced, he had his own way of dealing with it. At that moment, his sword essence suddenly rose, and his murderous aura soared to the sky. It seemed that even the god of the underworld felt afraid. The Blood Thunder Emperor's sword pierced toward the sky. This stroke was still the Shadow Sword Demon, but it was obvious that its size and lethality were stronger than the previous stroke. With an unparalleled sharp sword essence, it was going to completely tear apart the power of death. Boom! The power of death collided with Ling Xiao's sword essence. Waves of terrifying shock waves spread out wildly. It even contained a strong soul power. If this was not the demonic book hall and there were no defensive formations, the surrounding buildings would have been completely destroyed. His sword intent is actually so strong. How strong must his spiritual strength be in order to condense it? And why do I feel that there is a special energy in his stroke? But even I can't see it clearly. Chen Bai was even more surprised. The battle prowess that Ling Xiao displayed really broadened his horizons. His sword moves were so precise that they were no different from his movements, and he always grasped the power of his moves perfectly. Even he couldn't do it. The most terrifying thing was the special energy contained in Ling Xiao's sword qi. Although Chen Bai didn't know what it was, he knew that it was very strong. Could it be profound energy? Chen Bai shook his head casually and said, "Impossible. It is said that only the warriors of the immortal court can comprehend the profound energy." How could he? Even if Chen Bai racked his brains, he could not have imagined that Ling Xiao had the help of a sovereign personage. He had already comprehended the shadow profound and the light profound. The reason why he could challenge those above his level was closely related to the profound energy. It's time to end this. 3 rounds to defeat you. Even this old man feels that it's a bit too much. In front of the demonic book hall, the 3rd sect elder smiled. Wisps of black gas were emitted from his body. If one looked carefully, they would find that there were strange inscriptions on the black gas. Those inscriptions were all the same word, death. The most terrifying thing was that he had also released his martial soul. The willow martial soul was actually black. In an instant, it merged with the black death chi and enveloped the entire battlefield. Ling Xiao was like a trapped beast, completely trapped by the cage formed by the countless willow branches and the black death chi. Is it really going to end like this? Chen Bai stared at the battlefield. He didn't know what method Ling Xiao would use to resolve the current predicament. However, he believed that Ling Xiao was not an easy opponent to deal with. If he could be defeated so easily, the Chun Kingdom's royal family wouldn't have such a headache. From the information he had investigated, everyone who looked down on Ling Xiao had failed in the end, and they had failed miserably. The cage formed by the willow branches and the black death chi was constantly shrinking. Inside, Ling Xiao could clearly feel that this place was like a small hell. It was as if it was completely isolated from the outside world. And the death chi in this small hell was completely controlled by the 3rd sect elder. It was under his control. If someone was trapped here and couldn't escape in a short time, they would probably face a dead end. Boom, boom, boom. Ling Xiao's face was still calm, but the blood thunder imperial sword in his hand was very violent. The blood-red sword chi was like a storm as it pierced toward the cage. However, this cage seemed to have the power of the earth provided by the willow martial soul. It was able to quickly heal after being shattered, and such a scattered attack had almost no effect on the cage. At most, it could only slow down the speed of the cage's shrinking. He knew that such an attack was useless. Ling Xiao stopped in an instant. He took a deep breath and then put away the blood thunder imperial sword, the black immortal sword and black demon sword that he had sealed for a long time appeared at the same time. 2 swords, 2 moves, shadow sword demon, transformative stage. The black line descended, complete stage. Under the dual wielding, the 2 sword moves were executed at the same time. In mid-air, the black immortal and sword demon merged into one and exploded with a terrifying power. They directly tore a hole in the cage and rushed out. That hole, due to Ling Xiao's attack, naturally slackened the power of thunder and lava. Although it was still healing, the speed was much slower. What trick is this? 2 moves can be executed at the same time? Is this possible? It was already very difficult for an ordinary warrior to execute a move. This was because the condensation of the move required the perfect combination of spirit and inner strength. But Ling Xiao was able to execute 2 different sword moves at the same time with both hands. Moreover, these 2 sword moves could be fused together after being released, erupting with an incomparably shocking power. Although the 3rd sect elder was very surprised, he definitely didn't want Ling Xiao to escape from that hole. The magistrate's brush in his hand continued to release the power of death, trying to seal the crack completely. Thunderstorm art. Lava storm. Ling Xiao naturally wouldn't stay idle either. Since the power of lightning and the power of lava had an effect on this cage, he would naturally not be idle. He simply executed the 2 secret techniques consecutively. As long as the hole didn't completely heal, he had a chance to turn the tables. Kid, since you've gone in, don't think about coming out again. The 3rd sect elder roared and spat out. A black crystal core was spat out from his mouth. Inside the crystal core, black gas lingered. It seemed that the death chi was even denser. The death chi spewed above the hole. It began to accelerate Gale's recovery. This speed was definitely faster than Ling Xiao's destructive speed. Chapter 27:37. Ha 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 ha, Ling Xiao, go to hell. Death cage, trap and kill. The third elder put away the judgment pen and clenched his fists tightly, causing the cage to shrink rapidly. At this moment, he had no intention of sparing Ling Xiao's life. After all, it was Ling Xiao who had initiated the challenge. Even if he accidentally killed Ling Xiao, Qin Bai couldn't punish him. After all, offending one's superiors was a great disrespect. Unless Qin Bai no longer wanted to be the sect leader and wanted to destroy the demon dragon religion, otherwise, even if the third sect elder killed Ling Xiao, he would still be alive and well. Rumble, terrifying rumbles continued to ring out. The death cage shrank at a speed visible to the naked eye. Inside the cage, a frenzied storm of death was trying to kill Ling Xiao. It wanted to tear Ling Xiao to shreds. At this moment, even an ordinary martial artist at the peak of the 11th level of hell would be killed here if they didn't have any special, life-saving techniques. This was the third elder's strongest technique. It was also the key to his qualification to become the third elder. Seeing this, Qin Bai was a little anxious. If it weren't for the fact that he could still feel Ling Xiao's weak life force, he really would have attacked. On the other hand, the first elder and the second elder revealed complacent sneers. All of this was Ling Xiao's own fault. Did he really think that the elders of the dragon cult were pushovers? The third elder didn't even fear General Purple Thunder. Wouldn't killing Ling Xiao be a piece of cake for him? At this moment, they seemed to have forgotten that General Purple Thunder had been killed by Ling Xiao. Inside the death cage, Ling Xiao used the lightning shield to protect himself. His Tai Chi eye sped up, analyzing the real weakness of the death cage. That's right. The reason why the death cage is so unbreakable is because it contains the third elder's death energy, the will of the underworld god. If he wanted to completely destroy the cage of death, he would have to destroy the power of death and the will of the infernal deity. Looks like I'll have to use my heavenly tyrant martial spirit. Thinking of this, Ling Xiao no longer intended to hold back. In any case, the death cage was an independent space. Even the third sect elder had no idea what was going on inside. The tyrant martial spirit appeared behind him. The tyrannical was unleashed without restraint. Previously, even when facing Chun Songxiong, Ling Xiao had tried his best to restrain himself and not release universe of tyrants. Tyrannical will, because at that time there was really no way to hide. But today was different. With the help of the third elder and the terrifying will of the underworld god, he could not only release the sky tyrant martial soul to fight back, it could also unleash the potential hidden in the cells as much as possible. His cultivation would not stop advancing just because he had recovered. If he wanted to become stronger, his cultivation had to continue making breakthroughs. This was a crisis, but it was also an opportunity. Boom! Along with the release of the tyrannical martial spirit. With Ling Xiao as the center, a ball of terrifying willpower soared into the sky. This violent tyrannical will could not pierce through the death cage or tear it to shreds, but it could completely suppress the will of the underworld god. In terms of soul power, Ling Xiao was not bragging, but in the entire Qin nation, there was probably no one who could compete with him. The third sect elder was even worse. He was not the controller of the death cage, but he was the destroyer of the death cage. He was an alien. He was the god of destruction. He was a terrifying existence that even the will of the underworld god in the death cage could not rest in peace. Oh no, my will of the underworld god. A trace of blood suddenly flowed from the corner of the third sect elder's mouth. With the will of the underworld god broken, his spiritual sea was also damaged. For a moment he was actually injured. Although it was not serious, the blow to his heart was very serious. After all, the death cage was his ultimate move. Even General Purple Thunder didn't dare enter his cage of death. His second brother and eldest sister were also very afraid of it. How did this despicable Ling Xiao do it? Just as he was feeling puzzled, Ling Xiao withdrew the domineering will. The potential in his cells condensed into his soaring sword chi, and once again tore the death cage apart. The death cage relied on the will of the underworld god to become unbreakable. Now that the will of the underworld god had been destroyed by the domineering will, the death cage was just an ordinary attack. How could it block Ling Xiao's powerful attack? The soaring sword chi shot out from the death cage and pierced toward the third sect elder with lightning speed. Block it! Although the third sect elder was surprised, he was still a veteran and would not be as useless as his disciples. Under such circumstances, he still stretched out his magistrate's pen and drew a shield surrounded by black chi in front of him. Boom! The sword chi hit the shield, and the shield shattered instantly. This was an attack that Ling Xiao had unleashed with the hidden energy in his body. Although it was the same move as the Shadow Sword Demon, it was more powerful than before. In addition, his cultivation was already close to the energy of the early 10th level of the 11th level of Hell. Naturally, his combat strength was constantly increasing. The sword chi shattered the shield and then heavily pierced the third sect elder's elemental energy shield. Although it did not pierce through, the terrifying impact sent the third sect elder flying. The third sect elder could not control his body at this time. He crashed into the wall of the demonic book hall and fell down. Uft! He spat out another mouthful of blood. Although the sword had already consumed a lot of power after shattering the shield, it was still able to withstand the attack. It could not completely penetrate the third sect elder's defense, but the power it brought was still not small. The third sect elder was still spitting out blood. He was afraid that Ling Xiao would pursue him, so he suddenly got up from the ground. His hair was disheveled, and he looked very embarrassed. However, his eyes were filled with hatred. He wanted to defeat Ling Xiao in 1 or 2 moves and show off his powerful strength as the third sect elder. But he did not expect that he would be sent flying by Ling Xiao and spit out blood at this moment. He had lost all face in front of everyone. The murderous intent in his heart grew stronger. Good boy, I've really underestimated you. Although I don't know what secrets you're hiding, being able to break my death cage is truly admirable. The third sect elder pretended that he still had a trump card, but only he knew that the death cage was his strongest move. If he wanted to defeat Ling Xiao, he could only rely on his own strength. It was absolutely impossible to defeat him in a short time. But the third sect elder did not have that kind of extravagant hope. Being able to defeat Ling Xiao was his current goal. Third sect elder, can you admit my combat strength now? Ling Xiao looked at the third sect elder and said calmly, the combat strength of the 11th level of Hell is not just this. With a cold snort, the third sect elder suddenly stepped on the ground with his right foot and rushed toward Ling Xiao in an instant. The judgment pen in his hand pointed again. Judgment of Death, Ghost Strike. Chapter 2738. The third elder launched his attack, and a huge shadow of the judgment pen descended from the sky. The pen released hundreds of black threads, trying to wrap Ling Xiao in it again. Anyone could see that each of the black threads was extremely sharp. If they were cut, they would be beheaded on the spot. 3-headed lava hound beast soul transformation. Scorching hell, lava storm. Ling Xiao did not use the Blood Thunder Almighty Sword, and he had put away the Black Deity and Black Demon swords. He changed his form, and a scorching aura instantly rose in the entire field. At that moment, the power of the lava storm reached its peak. It then blasted towards the hundreds of black threads. A terrifying explosion sounded, and the black threads were burned and burned in the scorching hell. Kill! Ling Xiao roared, and the lava storm passed through the black threads and rushed towards the third elder. At this moment, even though his cultivation had yet to break through, he could already feel it. His counterattack had to start from this moment. Get lost! The third elder looked serious. He was actually attacked by Ling Xiao. His old face did not look good. With a roar, he raised his right hand, and a ghost hand condensed from a mass of black gas blocked the lava storm. Although the ghost hand was burned to ashes, the power of the lava storm disappeared in an instant. The third elder was not satisfied with blocking Ling Xiao's attack. He wanted to attack. He wanted to make Ling Xiao tired of defending himself. God of Death, curse! He spat out 4 words, and then countless small black characters shot out from his eyes. These characters formed a terrifying storm. It was as if the god of death had stepped out of hell. Danger! Ling Xiao frowned. He did not expect the third elder to have such a powerful move at this time. However, he did not intend to dodge. He could feel that this so-called god of death curse was not a martial technique, but a secret soul technique. A secret soul technique targeted the soul. The third elder was trying to destroy his spiritual sea. This was the first time Ling Xiao had encountered a secret soul technique attack since he came to the Black Tortoise continent. To be honest, he was a little surprised. However, apart from being surprised, he was also furious. The third sect elder really wanted to kill him. If a person's spiritual sea was destroyed, even if their body was intact, they would become a walking corpse, which was worse than a dead person. Since that's the case, don't blame me. Tyrannical martial spirit, be destroyed. The tyrannical martial spirit had always been residing in Ling Xiao's spirit sea. The boundless spirit sea was its territory and the source of its strength. A terrifying will rush towards the underworld god-killing curse, covering the sky and covering the earth. In any case, all the attacks happened in his spirit sea, so the people outside naturally couldn't see them. They could only feel that Ling Xiao's will had suddenly become even stronger. The underworld god-killing curse was destroyed, but even more killing curse energy surged in. The third elder clearly didn't want to give Ling Xiao a chance to live. No matter how many of you come, I'll kill all of you. Ling Xiao's eyes were filled with murderous indifference. The raging tyrannical martial spirit turned into a human figure in his spirit sea. The human figure was pitch black and had no face. It held a sharp sword in its hand, which destroyed the killing curse in an instant. The killing curse energy was no match for it. This was normal. Ling Xiao's soul power was dozens of times stronger than an ordinary person's. After coming to the Black Tortoise continent in order to hide his true identity, he had not used his soul power. However, there was no doubt about the strength of his soul power. How can this kid have such a terrifying soul power? What is his martial spirit? The third elder didn't believe that Ling Xiao's martial spirit was a sword martial spirit or a beast martial spirit. He firmly believed that Ling Xiao had an origin martial spirit in his body, which could contain all other martial spirits. It was this powerful martial soul that caused his underworld god-killing curse to be completely ineffective. Moreover, releasing the underworld god-killing curse consumed a lot of soul power. The third elder felt that his spirit sea had turned upside down and was no longer calm. This was because he had used too much soul power. His soul couldn't suppress the rhythm of his martial spirit. Although the third sect elder was unwilling to accept this, he had to admit that his attack had failed once again. Not only that, but he had also almost suffered a backlash. This kid. The first elder was shocked. She knew the third elder's strength very well, especially the underworld god-killing curse, which was a soul secret technique. Although it wasn't as powerful as the death cage, it was a special technique. However, it was a special method of attack that could catch the enemy off guard. To be honest, if she hadn't known this, she would have been at a disadvantage when facing the underworld god-killing curse. Even if she had known, she wouldn't have dared to fight it. But what was going on with Ling Xiao? This kid was only 16 or 17 years old when he reincarnated. How could he have such a powerful soul power? Was he from the soul race? That was impossible. The soul race could recognize him at a glance. Just as the first elder was puzzled, Ling Xiao had completely repelled the underworld god-killing curse. This time, it was his turn to counterattack. Earth-crossing golden light technique. Ling Xiao's figure suddenly disappeared from the spot. In that instant, the third sect elder's heart was filled with terror. The earth-crossing golden light technique was even faster than the demonic dragon phantom he had seen before. How could Ling Xiao have such a terrifying movement technique? Although he was terrified, he still used all his strength to perform the demonic dragon phantom and began to dodge. The demonic dragon phantom was a movement technique of the dragon cult's 4 great supreme martial arts. This was what Ling Xiao wanted to learn. As a high-ranking member of the dragon cult, the third elder's cultivation had reached the required level. Naturally, he could also practice it, although he had only reached a small mastery level. That ethereal movement technique allowed him to avoid his vital points. Ling Xiao's sword pierced through his arm. The pain made him grimace. If he wasn't afraid of embarrassing himself, he would have screamed out loud. What a great demonic dragon phantom! I like it even more. Although Ling Xiao had the earth-crossing golden light technique, it was a divine ability. Although it was powerful, it consumed too much energy. It could be used at a critical moment, but it couldn't be used too often. The demonic dragon phantom might not be as powerful as the earth-crossing golden light technique, but it could be used frequently. It was obviously more practical. He was determined to get it. Although he didn't manage to stab the third elder's vital points, Ling Xiao's expression didn't change at all, because he didn't expect that sword to take the third elder's life. His real killing move was yet to come. His body instantly transformed back into the demonic tyrant blood dragon martial soul transformation. Then, bloody energy erupted. Demonic dragon blood curse. When this move was released, the third sect elder's injuries, which were originally not serious, became fatal. Blood gushed out of the wound like a fountain. That really gave everyone a fright. It's not over yet. Bloodthirsty plague. Chapter 2739. What? How does this kid know such an evil secret technique? The third elder was scared. At this moment he was truly afraid. Whether it was the demonic dragon blood curse or the bloodthirsty plague, they were both special secret techniques that completely ignored defense. Once they came into contact with blood, the explosive power would be even more shocking. The third elder was shocked. He knew that if this continued, the consequences would be unimaginable. At this moment he was truly afraid. One had to know that in the history of the mystic world, there were many cases of outstanding geniuses killing cultivators with higher cultivation than them. The mystic world never lacked geniuses. There was also no lack of seniors who were used as stepping stones by geniuses. Big sister, save me. At this moment, the third elder had no other choice. After using the nether god-killing curse, he couldn't even control his own spirit sea. Facing the dual attacks of the demonic dragon blood curse and the bloodthirsty plague, he couldn't escape at all. At this moment, Ling Xiao broke through. His cultivation rose to the middle stage of the 11th level of the yin-yang realm. Now he wasn't recovering his cultivation, but breaking through. After wasting a few days, he was finally back on track. Speaking of which, he had to thank the third elder. The bloodthirsty plague gave him the third elder's abundant inner strength and the will of the nether god. It instantly destroyed the shackles of his cultivation. After breaking through to the middle stage, his strength was still increasing. At this moment, Ling Xiao's combat strength had surpassed the third elder's. Enough! Seeing that the third elder's life was in danger, the second elder had no choice but to intervene. He used the method of attacking Wei to save Zhao. The sharp dagger in his hand was aimed at Ling Xiao's vital point. It seemed that the second elder wanted to kill Ling Xiao directly. Shameless bastard! With a shout, the second elder's attack came to an abrupt stop. Chun Bai made his move. He didn't use any fancy moves. His figure flashed slightly, and then he sent out a slap. The second patriarch was sent flying by the force of the blow. He then crashed into the third elder. The two elders were like two rotten eggs, slamming into the wall. When they fell, their bodies were covered in stains and blood. Ling Xiao knew that Qin Bai was killing two birds with one stone. On one hand, he saved Ling Xiao and taught the second elder a lesson. On the other hand, he wanted to prevent Ling Xiao from killing the third elder. No matter what, the third elder was a high-ranking member of the dragon cult. If Ling Xiao killed him in front of so many people, it would attract trouble. He was doing this for Ling Xiao and for the sake of the demon dragon cult. This was the difference between him and Ling Xiao. If it were Ling Xiao, the third and second elders would have been dead by now. However, no matter what, the scene in front of them made the onlookers reveal expressions of disbelief. The scene was silent. No one would have thought that Ling Xiao would not only be able to block the third elder's powerful and mysterious attacks, but he would also be able to block them. He even almost killed the third elder in the end. If it wasn't for sect leader Qin Bai, the third elder's life would be gone. Of course, the reputation of the third sect elder was now completely gone. He was defeated by Ling Xiao and had to rely on the second elder's sneak attack on Ling Xiao to save him. If news of this got out, the three elders' status in the dragon cult would drop to the lowest point. Ling Xiao withdrew his beast soul transformation and stood there quietly, looking coldly at the group of dumbfounded people. Just now, these people followed the three elders and knelt down, saying that he didn't have the combat strength of a yin-yang transformation stage 11 hell. They said that Chen Bai gave him the magic dragon's phantom movement technique because of favoritism. These people even used their own lives to make a bet. This time they were done for. Many people directly collapsed to the ground. In the past, Qin Bai didn't have a good reason to kill them. But today, they gave this reason to Qin Bai with both hands. The evils they brought on themselves were the hardest to bear. Haha, as the second elder, you really made the dragon cult proud. You sneak attacked a disciple who just joined the sect. You are really great. And you, third elder, are you convinced of your defeat? Your pride and arrogance from before was really laughable. Think about it. I even killed General Purple Thunder. Do you think you, the third sect elder, are stronger than General Purple Thunder? Could it be that you still think that the reports from your subordinates are false? Or do you still think that I, Ling Xiao, am an imposter? Ling Xiao looked at the two elders who couldn't get up from the ground with contempt, his face full of mockery. He said coldly, "Now, do you still think that I haven't reached the level to cultivate the magic dragon's phantom?" The second elder's face was ugly, but he couldn't refute. His sneak attack on Ling Xiao was seen by everyone. This was something that could not be washed away no matter what. The second elder's face was even uglier. Originally, he wanted to teach Ling Xiao a lesson and wanted to end the battle in the shortest time possible. In the end, not only did he fail to take care of Ling Xiao, but he also made a fool of himself, even though he was very unwilling. He was very unwilling to admit his defeat. But now, facing Ling Xiao, he didn't have the slightest bit of fighting power. He was defeated and thoroughly defeated. He thought his attack was strange enough, but he didn't expect Ling Xiao's attack to be 10 times more strange and 10 times more terrifying. It seems that this kid should be the famous Ling Xiao now. There's no mistake about it. It didn't matter if it was that domineering aura or that unbelievably terrifying strength. It was almost exactly the same as the legendary existence. Damn it! Such a good disciple was taken by Qin Bai. From now on, the three elders would have a hard time in the dragon cult. Third elder, I'm asking you a question. Has my fighting power reached the late stage of the 11th level of hell? Ling Xiao's voice sounded again. No need to ask him. This is already an ironclad fact. If anyone dares to doubt your fighting power in the future, I'll be the first to not let him off. Qin Bai recovered from the shock. He snorted coldly, and on the surface he was very angry. It was directed at the third and second elders, but in his heart he was extremely ecstatic. Of course, this was because of Ling Xiao. To be honest, even he didn't expect Ling Xiao to be able to force the third elder to such an extent. He had originally thought that Ling Xiao would be able to fight to a draw with the third sect elder. This would also prove Ling Xiao's fighting power. But now, it seemed that he had underestimated his disciple. This kid's fighting power was simply unparalleled and amazing.